Welcome back to the Modern Streamers League. I am joined tonight once again by the Drake Sasser. Drake, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. These are some elimination matches tonight, so it's high stakes magic, and I'm really excited to watch. Modern's in a great spot. Had a ton of fun both playing and commentating this league so far, and I expect great things out of tonight's matches.
I do as well. Of course, I might be one of the players eliminated tonight, so that makes me a
Yeah,
little
you're
bit
on the chopping
nervous.
block. You got some winning to do.
I'm not quite the undefeated Drake right now, 3-0, Mr. Drake Sasser, but
Yeah,
I
we're
am a
doing it.
respectable 2-2 as the scroller right above my head is showing off right now.
Yeah, it's close.
It's
Two
close.
two, 3-0. It's functionally the same.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still alive, so we could meet in the finals.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't mind.
I'd
A
be
little bit
happy
of
with that. My Amulet Titan Karn deck is the last deck I have remaining, and we could have a mirror match in the finals. You on Amulet Titan and me on Amulet Titan Karn.
I've heard the mirror ain't great. I heard the mirror
No,
is not a fun one. So I
especially
can't say I'm looking forward to that.
especially not my list since I don't run a Ghost Quarter main, so that would be even worse for me.
That
But
feels disadvantaged.
the Modern Streamers League does have a lot of action for you tonight. We got a typical 4 matches of Modern. It's going to be led off with me against Francisco Palucek. I am on Amulet Titan Karn, my last deck. Francisco's on his homebrew, Astral Ren. Now, the way the Modern Streamers League works, this tournament is a triple elimination tournament. Each player brought 3 deck lists, and when a deck loses, that deck is gone forever. So I've lost Abs and Company. I've lost John Luris, and now I'm on Amulet Titan Karn. Mr. Drake Sasser over there, what decks do you still have? You have 3 decks still? Man,
All three, my friends. What happens if you don't lose? You get to keep your decks. You get to keep your decks, Saint Doom. So I got Gigante Humans, I got Luris Jund, and I got good old fashioned Amulet Titan. No companion needed.
no companion needed, absolutely. Hashtag companion free.
Companion free, companionless.
Everyone's saying companions are taking over the format, but my deck that I have left doesn't have a companion, so
Yeah, we're gonna really put that to the test tonight, aren't we? A little bit. You're gonna have to see if you can win without a companion.
absolutely. And well, Francisco doesn't have a companion either, so it's kind of an even match there.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah.
After that, we do have Spider Space against Fluffy Wolf 2. Spider Space has a companion Breach deck, which is that combo-oriented deck, and Fluffy Wolf 2 has the Luca Monsters deck, that red-green monsters. It's kind of Ponzo-like, but really just an awesome beatdown deck. But he has that Luca Emrakul combo, which is kind of sweet to see. And
Yeah,
then
that's so.
the third match is going to be Yama Killer against the winner between myself and Francisco. And the fourth match is Garrett Martin against the winner between Spider Space and Fluffy Wolf 2. So
Yeah.
lots of eliminate 4 players gonna be gone in
Four
just
players gone from the league tonight. What are we at right now? We at like 12? We've lost 4 already, right? We've had one match of
uh,
elimination. Is that correct?
it's just about to be on the scroller. Perfect timing.
Oh, the eliminated players.
Eliminated
Let's see at least
players.
3.
KO Diamonds is
Huh?
very active in chat right now. He said he hopes that Francisco and I both lose. That can't happen. I'm sorry.
No, that can't happen. That's not how any of this works.
Well, we could lose if the winner then loses in the following round against Yama Killer. So it looks like we
So
have
we were down
K-Pons,
6.
Archon, KO Diamond, Sodek, CWS, and VizQuiz. That's 7, if I counted that correctly. 7
2,
eliminated
3,
players.
4, 5, 6. I got 6, which makes sense because this is
6
done as
makes
like
way more sense, yeah.
yeah, because we only show stuff at even numbers. Everything makes sense. Anyways, yeah, so we got 6
is
eliminated,
hard.
10 more coming later, and we're gonna be down to 6 players left in the league after tonight. It's a good time to be undefeated. It's a good time
Next
to be.
week is going to be pretty rough. And if you look
Yeah,
at the eliminated bracket, we're gonna show you the players bracket in just a little bit. But if you look at the brackets, if you're down in the elimination bracket, you have to slog through to get to the championship.
a lot of winning.
Mr. Drake
A lot of winning.
Sasser, you only have to go what 3-0, I think, or something. If you're in the you won.
That sounds correct. I think I have to win. I think I have to win 3 straight
Yeah.
to make the finals. So
yeah,
winning early, valuable.
so I should not have lost. I'll remember
Yeah,
that
that's
next
correct.
time. I knew that the first Modern Streamers League. I didn't know it this time, and that was my mistake. So I just have to summon the Drake for next one for the next
Very,
one.
very easy to forget, but I'm here to remind you that losing not the way to not
Yeah,
way to the
don't
championship.
pro tip, don't lose.
Don't lose. Just
If
don't do it.
you don't lose, you can never not win.
Oh,
So
okay.
maybe. So
I
Modern
think that
Streamers
should
Leagues brought to you by Wizards of the Coast and by Card Hoarder. So we're pretty excited to be here tonight. We got these matches. We're actually going to have a solo commentating because I'm going to be playing. So Drake will be commenting on my match with Francisco, and we'll be having that in just a minute. So hold on, grab the closest armchair or whatever you have, or if you're standing, I guess like lean against a wall really well. We have Amulet Titan Garn against Astral Ren in just a minute.
All right, so I'll be commentating by myself for this, as we are going to see Francisco versus the Saint Doom here. The matchup appears to be Amulet Karn. It's Amulet Titan with some Karn, the great creators in it, versus Astral Ren. Hand looks pretty good from Francisco. I mean, as good as it normally gets. Like being able to power out your 3-drop on turn 2 is a lot more impressive than the match that Caleb and I commentated of Francisco versus, oh gosh, I don't remember who it was. I think it was Co-Diamonds. Don't remember. Caleb and I commentated a matchup where we got to see Francisco kind of really firing on all cylinders with his Astral Drift deck called Astral Ren, as Ren plus Astral Drift allows you to cycle these lands and get a bunch of value off the flickers. So that is what Francisco's going to be looking to do. I believe you can see the deck list if you're watching in chat. We got to see a turn 1 Amulet of Vigor as a piece of ramp from Saint Doom, and a piece of ramp from Francisco as well. Mulligan to a hand that looks similar to the hand he mulligan, but plus an Eternal Witness. So I don't know, maybe the hand's fine on 6, but we could have had better 6s, so we decided to mulligan it from a 7. Turn 2 Explore accelerates the mana a little bit more, but Saint Doom is going to have a little bit of trouble getting a Titan into play hasty as quickly as possible because the haste land's already in play. So if you tap that one, you have to either grab the Vesuva, which I do believe he's still playing. Yeah, you have to grab the Vesuva, or you just have to wait a turn or whatever. But we'll see how that ends up. Right now, he doesn't even have the green sources to activate Castle Garenbreg. I believe the best card that I can imagine being in the main deck for this Astral Ren is probably, I don't know, whatever's the most aggressive. Probably just this Renegade Rallier plus some Noble Hierarchs. Just getting a clock on seems the best way for Francisco to win this match, as he doesn't really have a lot of ways to interact with lands. So, I mean, anytime you can't really interact with lands, you can't discard the Titans, you can't counter the Titans. Those are the primary ways you beat Amulet Titan. So Francisco, with his hand of bunch of value creatures, pretty easy to get outvalued by a Primeval Titan grabbing Field of the Dead. So we'll see exactly how Francisco can kind of cobble together a plan to win this game. But, I mean, for the time being, St. Doom ramping lands unimpeded. And Bounce Lane just entered, floated some mana. We might see a 3-mana creature here. Looks like I picked up the Sun Home, the old double strike land. Ooh, an Uro enters play. Not quite the 6/6 Elder Giant that the deck is known for, or the 6/6 Giant the deck's known for, but still represents a piece of ramp and perhaps a threat later in the game. Doom set up pretty well for a turn 4 Titan if he has it. It was a pretty good series of turns in the first 3 turns for Doom. We're going to see Francisco cycle some lands here. Untapped land for Thragtusk is pretty enticing, and I imagine that's what we're going to see him do. Thragtusk just presents the most pressure, being able to attack for 5. You can attack for 3, attack for 5. Doom gains some life, so you're still going to need to get a little lucky. See Francisco sitting back in his chair trying to figure out, okay, what happens if there is a Primeval Titan next turn? Am I just dead? I mean, Francisco, he's played a lot of Amulet Titan. He knows what the deck can do. He knows he knows what can be done, and he doesn't look super happy with his options. So I can't imagine he's sitting super well at the moment. All right, and we do see the Thragtusk come down, add a little bit to the pressure. I think we're going to see an attack for 3 here. Let's see. I don't think that Doom is going to be looking to block this scout anytime soon. It represents a little bit more options with the Primeval Titan on the next turn. Even another land drop to get another zombie or something off Field of the Dead can represent a lot more damage saved on the next turn while providing a larger plethora of options and even just more mana for Doom on his combo turn. So I imagine we're going to see an attack for 3, and I would be very surprised to see St. Doom block. But we'll see exactly how things line up here. Francisco doing a little bit of math. Going to combat, making the attack. I think he was trying to see what happens if the Titan attacks and is hasty. Am I just dead to it? Thragtusk gaining a pile of life. Going to make that a little bit harder. So we do see the attack for 3 come through. And now Francisco's just kind of crossing his fingers. And Talaria West, he can't be that upset about it. You see him, he's postured a little bit differently. He knows the Titan's coming at the very least next turn, but there it is. a little nod. He knows there's a bounce land waiting in St. Doom's hand, so we're going to see a 2-mana land that this scout's going to be able to put into play, provide 2 mana, and then Doom can make 2 more mana by playing it once again for turn, untapping it, tapping it for mana. That'll make the requisite 6 mana using the Castle Garenbrig and the floating mana, and then we'll still have the haste land untapped. So St. Doom did a good job there, accounting for having the haste land already in play. He's now in the clear to grab the red-white bounce land and any other land he's interested in. That gets a thumbs up for Francisco. No interaction here. Not happy about it, but understands what's going on here. We see 2 bounce lands come through. Let's see what he wants to return with both of these triggers. A lot of different colored bounce lands in play. Making 4 mana here. Looks like leaving a red and white floating. We have a Dryad as well. That allows an extra land drop, which will let you still give your Titan haste, go grab the Valakuts, and that actually represents lethal right there. So we see Francisco, see the writing on the wall, knows that there's going to be lethal Valakuts coming through, and let's reach for some sideboard cards. And boy, is he willing to click on some sideboard cards quickly. Got some really, really good options coming through in the sideboard. We got a Damping Sphere, we've got an Aven Mind Sensor. Knight of Autumn is going to be something he can reach for if he wants to. He appears to actually be reaching for those. And 3 Avalanche Riders. A good way to interact with lands is just to blow them up. Just blow them up with a nice hasty attacker. It's a good one to flicker with Astral Drift as well. So a lot of good sideboard options. You can tell that Francisco knew that big mana was going to be one of the weaknesses for this deck and is accounting for it in the sideboard. We'll have to see if it's enough. But I like the amount of respect that he's given to various big mana strategies in his sideboard here. Thinking through just what the cuts are, the ends make a lot of sense. Looks like we shaved a Thragtusk and turned to witness a few Lightning Helixes, some Hunt Masters, some of the slower stuff. I like that and think it makes a lot of sense. From St. Doom's side, he has a wish board with a bunch of artifacts and stuff like that, so I can't imagine we'll see too much sideboarding. He might want to reach for something like Aether Gust since this is open deck list and he knows that there are Avalanche Riders coming in. That is going to be one of the primary ways that Francisco is going to be trying to interact with him. I expect to see he'll probably, Aether Gust has a lot of good targets even other than the Avalanche Riders, but is really, really good against the Avalanche Riders. Ramming Up Excavator is something he can reach for if he wants to, if he's worried about his lands being blown up. I don't know if he wants the reclamation. He might just bring in just the Reclamation Sage for Damping Sphere, but he's probably going to want some amount of answers to a Damping Sphere. Whatever that actually manifests itself into, we'll have to see. But I imagine we'll see at least an answer to the Damping Sphere that he knows is in in Francisco's sideboard, which is what part of the cool thing about open deck lists. Like Francisco only has one damping sphere, but because Doom knows about it, I expect that Doom is going to have to bring in like at least an answer to it, and so it does. Having open deck lists does actually change how St. Doom's sideboarding by just a little bit because he knows the kinds of threats that are coming at him, even though they're not in high numbers, and so he still has to respect them. Which is pretty sweet stuff. Turn 1 Amulet once again. Turn 1 mana creature from Francisco. He's got a little bit more powerful stuff to ramp into. So if we're ramping the Avalanche Riders and stuff like that, I can certainly see this mana creature, being worth its weight. We'll see exactly how Francisco wants to draw cards here. Looks like we have Wall of Blossoms and a cycling land to reach for. Although Path to Exile, Thragtusk, not quite the pieces of land destruction that I think Francisco's really hoping for and looking for. So we'll see how aggressively he wants to go reach for those cards. You can already see him hover over that Sheltered Thicket, pretty ready to cycle that, looking for some answers. Field of the Dead on turn 2 from St. Doom looks to be a pretty slow progressing hand, but with Amulet in play, one single bounce land can change that pretty quickly. Picked up another cycling land for Francisco. He's going to go ahead and cycle that. Maybe considering committing another mana creature, and we can still hold up the cycle from for Sheltered Thicket. That's why he chose not to attack for 1 with this Noble Hierarch. Really, really needs to find a piece of land hate this turn. With Amulet in play, St. Doom going into his turn 3, he's casting a Ramstone in the form of Explore. It's pretty likely that the Amulet deck can turn for a Titan with Amulet in play, but it looks like the Explorer, after the Explorer, St. Doom only has 3 lands in play, so I guess St. Doom's actually out of lands, which means that St. Doom very likely has the Titan, but is currently missing the lands. So we'll see exactly what happens next turn, but certainly probably a breath of relief there from Francisco, and you can see him thinking. We cycled the Sheltered Thicket, still no pieces of interaction for lands, or even a piece of interaction for the Amulet of Vigor, something like a Night of Autumn, something to reach for. And we're just going to put the quickest clock into play that we possibly can. Going to see the Thragtusk come into play, and an attack with Birds of Paradise. I think this attack's a little aggressive. There are draws that Francisco has that lead towards wanting to Path to Exile a Titan, but I think Francisco's not really willing to respect that and just values the point of damage a little bit higher than a really, really good draw from St. Doom here. All right, and another Explore from St. Doom. Not really worth a whole lot if we don't find a bounce in, but he did. Will he have enough mana after all of this? I don't currently think so, unless there's something like, okay, a Dryad comes into play. That just simply replaces itself on mana and doesn't really represent more mana, I think. And we chose to leave the other bounce land in play. This one's getting returned to hand. 2 mana floating, 1 more land drop. I believe this is the last land drop. There's 4 mana in the pool. We'll see what Doom can come up with. A Karn. Okay. Karn has entered play and is down ticking. -2. Let's see what the options are. Looks like he grabbed a Wormcoil Engine. It's an interesting grab, because for 6 mana, you'd think that St. Doom would be reaching for something like an Amulet Titan. His hand certainly panned out rather weird if there's not a Titan and we were missing lands and stuff like that. So we'll see what exactly gets played first. And maybe there's a turn where we can play both in the same turn. Thragtusk is going to attack Karn. Karn's going to go down. We'll see if Francisco has any interest in rallying back anything, or if we have interest in pathing this Dryad at any point. A few options for ways to sequence cards available to Francisco, and we'll see what he wants to do. Looks like we are going to bring a land back into play, commit another Burst of Paradise to the board, add a little bit more mana, and we're going to hold this Path to Exile up. Francisco doesn't look to be too interested in pathing this Dryad, looking for something like he did the Wormcoil that was just grabbed, or a Primeval Titan. All right, and here comes the requisite mana, that bounce land from last turn that St. Doom wisely left in his hand at the end of turn. That way he can make more mana on the following turn. Representing 4 mana this turn, creating 6 mana. There's the Primeval Titan. A little bit of a yikes from Francisco, who's probably hoping for just a Wormcoil Engine there, but no such luck. And we'll see exactly how Francisco wants to time this path to exile. I suspect he's going to try and respond after St. Doom attempts to give it haste. So we see the haste land plus Boros Garrison. Haste land being Slayer's Stronghold. I always forget the name of that one. Just call it the haste land. Slayer's Stronghold plus Boros Garrison into the battlefield. Gonna likely be targeting this Primeval Titan to give it haste and I believe first strike. No, vigilance. Vigilance. A very, very relevant other ability. So Titan now has haste. And let's see. Beginning of combat, I believe this will be the spot Francisco goes for it. Path to Exile on Titan is going to work for sure. No Pact of Negation to be seen in St. Doom's list, so no chance of that happening. Path to Exile works. And Francisco looks to be in okay shape. I mean, he's down on cards, but he's got a good clock. St. Doom, if he doesn't have another Titan or anything, doesn't really have anything going at the moment. Francisco does know there is a Wormcoil engine coming down next turn. So that is one of the 5 cards St. Doom has. Drawing a Forest, not the best for Francisco, but once again, still has a pretty reasonable clock. St. Doom probably not super interested in blocking with this Dryad anytime soon, not until he absolutely has to, because Titan makes Titan lethal for sure. Field of the Dead enters, but does not make a zombie. The Path to Exile looks like it grabbed a snow-covered land. I wonder if there was a forest, if we could have maybe made a zombie there. Very interesting the way that played out. And there's just another Titan, and it looks like Francisco not super interested in playing it out. I can't say I particularly blame him. That's pretty rough. And I mean, ultimately it kind of came down to Francisco simply just not really being able to interact. Like he has cards in his sideboard that he put there designed to interact with lands in big mana matchups, and drew none of them over the course of the game, which maybe you could make an argument that maybe he's supposed to mulligan for it, but he had a lot of looks with his cyclers. His hand presented a reasonable clock, had functional mana, and had cyclers to try to find those cards. So Francisco took the judgment call, going for that in a high-risk situation. I have a lot of respect for it, and he would certainly know better than me exactly how that matchup plays out and what kind of hands you need to mulligan. But
I can't imagine that's a very good matchup for Astral Ren at all. He would need a Renin 6 he'd need to be on the play, Renin 6 kill Scout. Scout be my only ramp, and then I don't do anything for a bunch of time. I mean, I didn't do anything till like turn 4 any of those games, but I knew I looked at my hands and I was like, oh, turn 4 Titan, that's fine. I think even
I think turn 4
Titan,
Titan with haste is almost always fine to keep. Like just turn 4 Titan is usually like when you slip below the keepable line, from my understanding. If all it does is produce a turn 4 Titan, that's it. Like that's not usually good enough. But turn 3 Titan without haste or turn 4 Titan with haste are all, I believe, within the range of keepable hands for Amulet Titan. So I think your hands were well within range, and you're 100% right that's just, I mean, his deck didn't really come designed, especially in the main deck games, to interact with Amulet. And after sideboarding, he didn't really draw his powerhouse cards that do interact with Amulet. And I mean, that's just, if we're going to come down to a goldfish, Amulet's just going to goldfish faster than Astral Ren will. And that's certainly what we saw happen there.
Even still, the only interaction that Astral Ren had, besides the Avalanche Riders, the only interaction Astral Ren has against a primetime in play is Path. And if Primetime's in play, I probably have a Field of the Dead, so you're pathing, giving me a zombie. It's not a great trade, but still I have more Primetimes than I believe he has paths. And
yeah, the Path to Exile certainly represents more of a temporary solution to a problem you have to solve down the line. But even at the point in which you have a Titan hitting play, your cards that aren't like Damping Sphere that shut down multiple lands really have more or less expired. Like Avalanche Riders, once there's a Titan hitting play, you need to be able to flicker it or something. Like just one Stone Rain needs to come down quick to disrupt Amulet in a relevant amount. But once there's a Titan in play, grabbing 2 more lands, a single Stone Rain is just not good enough at that point. And so it really comes down to being able to line up Francisco's cards against Amulet, and unfortunately it wasn't in the cards. I don't really think that's the matchup he was expecting. Like I think if he had the choice of any of his other 3 decks, he'd probably be a little more interested in running those into Amulet. I don't think that was his intent, is to try to shore that matchup up instead to just rely on his other decks. But in the elimination bracket, you don't have a choice anymore. You got to play what you got to play, and if the matchup's bad, and that's it. And that certainly is it for Francisco. St. Doom, you cling on a little bit longer. 3-2.
I'll be playing in round 3 tonight against Yamakiller. who's on his last deck is Luris Scales. So I'll be thankful that
Larissa
Karn is in my
Scales.
deck there. Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like a good spot for Karn's static ability. Not the most relevant it's been in Modern in a long time with Mox Opal
No.
banned, but I guess you're pretty fortunate finding another matchup where that card static still has text.
One of my favorite things to do with Karn back when Mox Opal was legal was just Karn plus Destroyer Opal. Now he's got 6 loyalty. Come on,
Yeah,
come at
you
me.
got you got value. You got to Stone Rain them with an uptick on a Planeswalker. That's
Yep.
on a 4-mana Planeswalker. That's such an insane rate, but not been available since they banned the very very powerful Mox Opal. Most people kind of been clamoring for that ban for a little while. So WotC finally pulled the trigger. No more Mox Opal, and Karn Creator kind of immediately kind of went down in stock. People choosing to kind of abandon it, but you holding out, holding strong, and I think you're going to get paid out. We'll see
I
exactly
like
how that matchup plays out, but it sounds good to me.
So I move on. Unfortunately, Francisco is eliminated from the tournament. We need like some sad music right now.
A good run and some sweet text. We got to see some great magic from Francisco in this league. So I'm really happy he was a part of it. I think he's great. And you know what? It just means more time for commentary. We need more Francisco commentary in our
Everyone
lives.
needs more Francisco in their life. I actually think Francisco's that deck that Astral Ren might be my favorite brew in the entire league right now. I also like Spider Space's brew, which is the Breach deck, but he's running Luris as a companion instead of Luris and Emery. So most of these Breach decks are running Luris and Emery main. Spider Space cut out the Emery and cut out 3 Luris to make a companion Luris, and I think the deck is sweet. That's the next matchup is Spider Space against Fluffy Wolf 2, that Luris Breach deck against red-green Luca monsters. So we'll be back in just a minute with that matchup, and I will be joining Drake to talk about this one. So we'll see you in just a minute.
Yay! A friend!
No more solo. And we're back.
All right. Yeah, we are. And we're going to be watching from the Nightmare Breach side. Not a deck I know a lot about, I'll be honest. Like this has a lot of new toys for my Coria, at least in the form of Keenan, Bonder Prodigy. 4 copies we see in Spider Space's deck that provides a lot more mana. I mean, no Mox Opal, no problem, says Spider Space. We'll do this with Mox Amber and some Keenan, Bonder Prodigy, Lures of the Dream Den. I don't know what to expect here. This deck looks crazy to me. Looks like a combo deck. Looks like it should be
It's
quick.
it's such a sweet deck. Spider Space and I have been chatting a little bit about this deck and how he's been brewing it. It is. He said it's the hardest deck he's ever played. Like it requires so much. I'm gonna call it brain energy. Some people call it
Sure.
math. I'm gonna call it brain energy. It requires so much brain energy that he's just exhausted after he plays a league with this deck. Because even just now, look. What do you? How do you open this
Yeah,
hand?
these cards. I mean, these cards just have so much text. Just like glance over the cards in hand, and there's just walls of text on
Mhm.
Keenan, Goblin Engineer. There's just a lot of little micro decisions to be made. A lot of like little bit of edges to be gained. This is kind of one of those like Storm-esque combo decks that looks like it probably has non-deterministic combos a lot until you have to kind of do all the grinding station math, figure it out, and then you kill your opponent. Certainly not the kind of deck I would want to be running in any kind of high stakes environment on my first time through playing the deck for sure.
No, not at all. And Fluffy Wolf 2 starts off with an Arbor Elf, which means he could be ready for 4 or 5 mana next turn, potentially, depending upon how many Utopia Sprawls he has in his hand. Otherwise, could just be ready for just like a Blood Moon or a Magus next turn.
Yeah, so there's no Blood Moon's main, but we do have 2 pillages. We have
Mhm.
4 Megas of the Moon. This is the kind of new look that we've seen out of the red green these red green mid range decks. Also got some toys out of Ikoria though. We got Lucca Coppercoat Outcast that can how do you say Chaos Warp? Is that the term where you just like turn one of your creatures into a bigger creature? We have a copy of Emrakul to reach for that. We have a companion. You can see that in the companion slot. I don't know if it got revealed, but there's Obosh on the side of Fluffy Wolf, and we have Luris on the side of Spire Space. So both players playing some companion magic. Unlike you and Francisco in the last match, these players remembered to bring their companions.
We don't need
Uh,
companions. Francisco and I, we don't need them.
yeah, well, you certainly didn't. We'll see how long that trend can continue. And yeah, so here we do see a Magus of the Moon come through, which normally is impactful in a lot of matchups. When your opponent leads on turn one basic land Astrolabe, I can't imagine I'm too enthusiastic about my Magus of the Moon coming down. Just it seems like it represents a lot less damage and makes your turn two play feel a lot less powerful.
So a cool thing he can do right now is you play that Kinnan and then use the Mox Amber with that. So he could have actually um, played Kinnan, used Mox Amber, gotten an extra mana, correct? And then played the Chromatic Star and cracked it this turn if he chose. But instead, he's Spider Space being a little bit conservative and going for the Goblin Engineer, setting up a big turn as opposed to just accelerating on mana, like maybe like a primetime deck would want to.
Yeah, I think the problem there was a blue mana. You need access to a blue mana to make the Keenan happen, and
Well, he's got the
that means that
Astrolabe.
you yeah. So you have to use the Astrolabe there. So you don't really net any kind of mana, and so I think you just end up like making a bunch of mana that doesn't really get you anywhere. So I kind of like Spider shoring up a little bit, baiting a removal spell with the Goblin Engineer, moving
Mhm.
some cards around, and then opening up his options to have a more impactful turn. The turn he plays Keenan uninterrupted, so that way he can make a bunch of mana. You know, he can just make a bunch of mana immediately off Keenan and get value out of that. And so, like, we may see something like I don't know exactly how much mana he can make here, but he might be able to Keenan, play Luris, and then bring back the Goblin Engineer if he has access to all that mana. But that's like 7 mana on turn 3. So we'll see if we can make that happen.
Well, once
Keenan's
he
mana
plays the Mox
generation ability,
Amber, and the Mox
very
Amber
impressive.
will produce double mana thanks to that Keenan.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think all
So,
of these do, right? So
mhm,
Astrolabe would make 2 mana if you could play Keenan without it, but you need it for the blue mana, like you
right.
mentioned. But both Star nets a mana and Mox Amber nets 2 mana. So we have access. We got a lot going on here, and being able to play Luris plus Keenan means you have to answer the Luris first, otherwise it just brings the Keenan back, right? And then you're still just producing a bunch of mana. You can immediately bring
Ooh,
back some artifacts and draw cards, and
I
so
like
I mean a
this.
lot of options here for
EE
Spider.
on one. Blow up your own Astrolabe, but you also destroy your opponent's mana engine and getting a 2 for 2 there. But Fluffy Wolf 2 needs a lot of mana for it to really operate his deck. And now all of a sudden he's stuck at 3 lands.
Yeah, I mean this kind of reminds me of like a wasteland trade where like you often trade your land drop for your opponent's mana. There we got to see Spider trading 1 mana from the Astrolabe represented an extra mana, right? For 2 mana from the opponent. So
Mhm.
you essentially shut off 2 lands for the price of one. It was essentially a double wasteland if you really jump through some hoops, do some mental gymnastics. The trade on mana made a lot of sense, and with Fluffy Wolf being an all odds deck, it's very hard for Fluffy to utilize 4 mana. So like
Mhm.
just taking Fluffy off 5 mana is actually very impactful. It makes a lot of sense. I like that play from Spider a lot. And we see only a Stone Rain. Really, a Stone Rain at this point in the game really wasn't that impactful. We got to see it go after the Mox Amber as it represents 2 mana instead of 1.
We're
So
about
a
to
little
see a
bit better, but we
Lurrus.
still have the star to make 2 mana. Yeah, we still have the star to make 2 mana, so we can choose to bring back the Amber here if we want. Um, Other than that, I think we can bring back like a Bobble or something that draws more cards if that's the kind of angle that Spider wants to take here. I don't know. Like I don't know if Spider expects like a Glory Bringer. We may see him try to get more initial value out of his Luris, just draw cards and stuff like that. But if he doesn't expect that, we may see something like just something like more mana put in place, something like a Mox Amber or something like that. We saw Astrolabe reach 4. That does make more mana and draw cards, so kind of split down the middle. See a little prayer from Spider here. Please don't kill my Luris. I would like to untap with these cards, please. Please no Glory Bringer. And a little sigh of relief. That's not a Glory Bringer. That
I think it's
is
a big reason
much
why
worse.
Spider Space knocked Fluffy Wolf off of those Arbor Elves was to keep him off of Glory Bringer mana.
Exactly. Another Goblin Engineer added to the mix. A lot of moving parts here. This is the exact spot where I'm pretty glad I'm not piloting this deck. There's cards coming back from the graveyard. Goblin Engineer, functionally a demonic tutor for any permanent in the deck, as you can't play, you can't play anything above CMC2, so your Goblin Engineer just searches anything. You can cast it with Luris. So, like, really a lot of moving parts here. Really glad I don't have to figure it out. Grinding Station seems like a good place to start, though, and we see Grinding Station enter, immediately mill some cards, looking for most likely an Underworld Breach.
My favorite part about this deck, when Spider Space was describing it to me, is he said, I can use Luris to buy back an Underworld Breach because it's an enchantment. And I was like, yeah, you have me sold. This deck sounds sweet. So
Yeah,
let's see
you're
what he
doing
picks up
you're
now.
doing busted stuff with busted cards printed this year. Can't be that bad, am I
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, come on.
Look at the entire
And I
field right now. Metallic Rebuke is a relatively new card. Keenan Luris, Goblin Engineer, all new cards, and Breach. Like
all
this,
like the last 6 months.
yeah.
Easy. Like I don't know exactly when Modern Horizons was, but I'm pretty sure it's still within the 6 month time period. Like, just put broken new Magic cards in your deck. Like, do it, and you can't have that bad of a deck. Just shuffle it all together.
Meanwhile, Fluffy Wolf 2 is still playing this old card called Magus of the Moon. It's
Yeah,
too
get out of
old.
here,
Can't be good.
Magus. Have you read
Kessig Wolf
Arkham's
Run.
Astrolabe?
Get out of
Get
here.
with the
That's
time.
Innistrad. Get out. It's too old. Too old.
All right, we see. Let's see. This rebuke represents a lot of options. Definitely covers Spider from the Glorybringer. I think that we believe him to be scared of for most of this game. So Metallic Rebuke saving you a little bit there. We could see a turn where there's like some 3-drop played for Fluffy Wolf first that we could play for. He could pay for Metallic Rebuke, and then Bone Crusher Giant is the follow up, a card he may not care as much about getting Metallic Rebuked, but does add to the board if Spider does just let it resolve. So not a super high quality card that he wants to rebuke, and might still be a good 2-spell turn for Fluffy, but we'll see. Only 2 cards in hand, and of course the Obosh still in the companion zone to be cast, but that one can pretty easily be countered by rebuke as well.
I think Obosh is an important setup card. Now, of note, Spider Space doesn't actually have that many counter spells. So it would make sense if Fluffy Wolf wasn't really playing around any, because there's only a couple in the actual deck. Let's see, he has 2 Metallic Rebuke, and that's it. So when you're only running, your opponent's only got 2 Metallic Rebukes in the entire deck, you kind of are a little less incentivized to fully play around it.
Mm-hmm. That's true. I mean, Fluffy still went for a very similar line. We got to see Clothis, a little bit more valuable card, jammed first with the Bone Crusher Giant jammed second. So we did have a good double spell turn from Fluffy. I like it a lot. Spider, recognizing the value of not falling behind on board, does choose to fire off the Metallic Rebuke on the Bone Crusher Giant, but Spider Space's hand doesn't look great. Now, do have to bear in mind that the graveyard is an extension of Spider Space's hand for as long as Lurrus remains on the battlefield, but the hand doesn't represent a lot of options at the moment. Spider Space really, I expect to be digging hard for a Underworld Breach this turn, using most likely this Mox and this Grinding Station. I wouldn't be surprised to see him end up sacking both artifacts to get 6 more looks at an Underworld Breach to kind of just close the door on this game as quickly as possible. But we see him doing the math now, and I'm sure he'll figure it out. But once again, glad to not be there.
If he
Glad
does sacrifice the Grinding Station, that's kind of going all in on that turn, because the Clothis will just eat the Grinding Station the next turn and really slow him down. So it's something you really have to consider right then and there. Now, of note, that Clothis can also just eat the Thassa's Oracle and that's going to put a real hurting on Spider Space winning an unfair game because there's only one Thassa's Oracle in this deck.
Yeah, we'll have to reach for the timeout, or not, sorry, timeout, deck your opponent line with grinding station, which I'm not pretty sure Spider does not want to have to click through all that. And so Underworld Breach there we see picked up. I don't know, how did we
Little
draw a
smile. Do
card?
you see that little cheeky smile from Spider Space? Now Spider Space also does have a single Galvanic Blast, so he could also just burn his opponent out if
Burn
the
the
Thassa's
opponent out,
Oracle
sure.
is removed.
I imagine this breach is lethal. If breach isn't lethal, I don't know where we're at, what we're doing. But we managed to draw a card. Looks like Goblin Engineer welded something away. I missed that while I was like talking and looking at the deck list. But we did end up drawing an Underworld Breach enters play. We have Underworld Breach, Grinding Station, Mox. I think that was just the old Breach combo in general. Was Mox make some mana with Emery or whatever? And here we have like yeah, it was just like make mana. Yeah, because you need a legend, so we have a legend in play. In fact, Keenan makes even more mana, and then sack it to mill 3, so it just continues to replace itself over and over. Thassa's Oracle already in the graveyard, so I imagine that's what we're going to reach for as we continue to sack this same Mox Amber over and over again. And so it goes. We will see if Fluffy is interested, sees the writing on the wall, wishes to continue playing, or if we're going to have to click through all of this.
I mean, this is
But
over.
it's all over but the clicking. It's all over but the clicking. And to be fair, this is an incredibly complex deck with a lot going on. I would not blame Fluffy if they were just sitting there like, I don't know what's happening. F6, I'm going to hope I untap. Because I've definitely been there with combo decks I didn't understand and I'd played against before. And like, this has so many moving parts. I would not be shocked to see Fluffy just kind of chilling, maybe going to the bathroom, getting a drink, whatever, hoping to come back and it's their upkeep or whatever.
Go take a quick non-smoking break.
Yeah, just go out, do some, eat some ice cream. What's that? Did you see the video that was made recently by MTG Remy? It was like, "Wake me up before you combo." It was a cute thing. I'm not crazy.
But I
It's on
have
Twitter.
to see that.
It was adorable. It's very, very good. Check out MTG Remy on Twitter. It's a great video, and it reminds me a lot of this particular situation where it's just a very, very cute video. I highly recommend checking it out.
Smoking break is better than non-smoking break? Absolutely. Absolutely not.
Yeah. I said ice cream. Look, just always enjoy some ice cream.
Everyone can enjoy ice cream.
And you can get it in small little cartons. I went to the store the other day. They were out of the flavor that my wife likes a lot. So
what flavor
well,
is
at least
that?
in the pint size. So we had to grab the little tiny cups. And so we ended up leaving with like 10 cups. It looked like the people from the math problems because like to get the same as like a pint, we had to get like 10 of these cups, and they were like 10 for $10 or something, right? So it just, like I said, we look crazy. And we did find the Thassa's Oracle. We did do all the clicking, necessary clicking accomplished. We're going to take a little look at the deck list, and we are going to follow suit. Let's see what. We'll start with Red Green Lucca because that's what's on the board for all of you. I expect 4 Relic and Progenitus, going to add a lot to the matchup for sure. And from the Red Green Monster side, not a lot of graveyard hate outside of Clothis, which is a little slow in the main deck. Maybe reach for something like Choke if you expect a lot of islands, but we saw Spider function pretty well off of some non-islands for most of that game.
Right.
I would expect the second Pillage, and the Trinisphere looks really, really nice.
Seal of Primordium looks really sweet with Luris.
Yeah, you just blow it all up. Just blow everything up. Doesn't blow up Clothis, but it does get rid of the Relic of Progenitus, Choke if we do see that one, in Trinisphere, which are all some of the more relevant sideboard hate. So I do like the Seal of Primordium here quite a bit.
Interesting that Spider Space is cutting the repeal, which is an answer to a temporary answer to the Relic, because you can make your opponent either sack it now or return it to their hand, so you can combo off that turn. Like do it on their end step, then untap and combo off. Or it also answers the Trinisphere quite nicely as well for 4 mana.
I imagine it's a lot like the Storm deck where, like, when you play Modern Storm, the repeal is kind of your main deck catch-all just so you don't get punked and are just, like, dead to certain cards in the main deck game with no outs whatsoever. But when we move to the sideboard, I do actually like this posturing where you take out your catch-all because it's just not actually that good of a card, and instead bring in all of your permanent answers that are much more effective. And in this deck, I like it even more because you have that line already of grinding stationing yourself looking for Underworld Breach. So while you're doing that, you can be looking for your sideboard 8, and then you can use your Mystic Sanctuary to go put your sideboard hate piece on top of your deck again. Things the Nature Claim specifically. I think that's why we see a split of Seal and Nature's Claim here. You can fetch your Mystic Sanctuary, get that Nature's Claim on top of your deck, draw it, and then you have that Trinisphere taken care of or what have you.
And Seal of Primordium just looks really good, like I already said with Luris. Just a
Yeah, that one can be
repeatable
just grabbed
natural
from Luris already.
Yeah.
Exactly. So a lot of good options that are very synergistic with the plan Spider's already doing. The real weakness of the deck appears to be hard graveyard hate, which we don't really see any from Fluffy. Like Relic of Progenitus, a good value graveyard hate card, very good against some of the Euro value decks, and but not really quite as good in this matchup. We see Spider seriously taking on this hand, and I'll tell you what, this hand is not impressive.
No.
A Mox Amber, a Seal of Fire, and lands. That's this is the era of the London Mulligan. I can't wait to get rid of that hand fast enough. But Spider doing the math, and we chose to keep. All right. Well, clearly I have a fundamental misunderstanding of this deck because this hand looks atrocious to me. But you know what?
I don't think the misunderstanding's
really
on you.
Here and not there.
I think Spider Space is a fantastic player, but I seriously question this keep. Like Mox Amber is very important card to have.
I have been wrong too much on this stream from saying this hand looks like it does nothing into that player just absolutely smashing the other player. So I will no longer make any kind of assessments.
There's the Utopia Sprawl.
He's
upset because Fluffy Wolf opened with Utopia Sprawl instead of opening with Arbor Elf because he has a Seal of Fire to deal with the Arbor Elf. So his gamble of keeping a terrible hand didn't even pay off because his payoff was answering a 1/1. Like let's
Not afraid to dagger 2 relics. Well, that's going to be pretty hard to answer anyway, but no second land from Fluffy. That gives Spider Space some time, and relic not actually that effective against, something like a Luris Beatdown. Like Fluffy needs to draw lands eventually, or Spider Space will just cast a 3-mana 3/2 and just start attacking. This is a weird hand. I would not be shocked to see Fluffy maybe cycle one of these relics looking for a land here. Chose not to, instead holding them both up. 1 land with the Utopia Sprawl versus a hand of all lands. I think we're about to see a really scrappy Magic game here. I tell you what.
Spider Space just drew well with that Underworld Breach. Now, of note, Spider Space is not cracking his fetches because he wants to keep extra available cards in his graveyard to play around, like you just pointed out there, the Relic of Progenitus. That way, if he ends up putting 3 things in his graveyard at once, those relics would have to be cracked to be able to eat the entire play.
I like this turn a lot. Just go ahead and get the Seal of Fire in play. It's something that you can get back with Luris next turn. Maybe require some action from these Relic of Progenitus. And you want to just basically spend most of your turn kind of baiting out a activation of the Relic to draw cards to keep you off value. That way you can eventually, down the line, use this Underworld Breach to finally get somewhere. But for the moment, Fluffy Wolf not biting, not even willing to crack relics to hit land drops. We see that extra mana leave the pool. That Seal of Fire pretty cleanly can take care of that Arbor Elf. And I believe there's 2 fetch lands for Spider Space, so we should be able to both cast Seal of Fire, cast Luris, and then buy back. But with this Mox Amber, right? Yeah, Mox Amber plus the Astrolid lets him get all of that done. So we do have a turn where we can both Seal of Fire and buy it back. I don't know what Keenan adds to the mix, but I trust Spider Space to figure that one out. I think that card might be free based on how the mana plays out, but I don't know if the colors are free. And this deck hurts my head.
white, green right now for Luris, so he just needs a red land, or he needs to use the Astrolabe to buy back the Seal. So he can definitely kill the Arbor Elf and then recast the Seal of Fire because he did that little trick with playing around the Relic of Progenitus. Fluffy Wolf does not have open mana, which means that if he taps the Relic, Spider Space can just choose to lose the land instead of losing the very important Seal of Fire.
Right, exactly. And it looks like, Spider Space, like I said, I did think the Keenan was free. It turns out it actually was. It produced enough mana off these this Astrolabe and this Mox Amber, be able to make this Luris plus. I think you actually ended up plus a mana on the whole exchange, which is pretty impressive. Keenan really showing its power.
He spent 2 mana and he got 4. right?
Yeah,
Because he
exactly. And
Astrolabe
Fluffy
and
Wolf back
or
down to
three.
2 mana with
Mhm.
5 power in play. Spider Space is assembled kind of a clock, and he looks, I don't know, he looks pretty pleased with himself. He's got 7 damage on board. We got, consistent attackers, and worst comes to worst, we can just start activating this Keenan and putting cards into play. It's not great, but like I said, we're watching a scrappy game here where Fluffy Wolf kept a hand off the back of Hate, and then Spider kept a hand off the back of counterplay and hitting your land drops. Although that third mana does
Yeah.
represent 3 mana plays unlocked for Fluffy Wolf. No 2 mana plays in the odds only deck, but lots of 3 mana plays. Trinisphere among them, Seasoned Pyromancer among them. Get to see that come down and kind of stop sign all of the ground aggression.
Fluffy Wolf needs a stomp badly. I can see Fluffy Wolf winning this game if he peels off a couple stomps, kills the Lurrus. Keenan doesn't matter as much if Spider Space doesn't draw well. The Relic Progenitors kind of hold off the graveyard combo aspect of the deck for a little bit. But maybe he doesn't even need a stomp because he just filled the board here. Can't attack with
Right.
Lurrus right now.
I imagine we're going to end up activating Keenan. You see him reading that card, just double checking exactly how much it costs. I think we more than have enough mana for that, and not a lot of the routes get anywhere else. Underworld Breach, no cards in graveyard, not impressive. Seal of Fire can pick off something like Seasoned Pyromancer, but those 2/1/1s still represent being able to trade with one of the creatures. So I can't imagine we're going to want to attack here unless he just wants to attack and trade and then recast it with Lurrus, but that'll get gotten by Relic. And we see just a passing of the turn. I believe you can activate the Keenan at instant speed, so I imagine we're going to see that at some point.
What exactly does the Keenan do here?
It puts a non-human creature onto the battlefield, so that can hit Thassa's Oracle or it can hit Goblin Engineer.
It's kind of like a collected company, huh?
Kinda, except it's
Top
stapled on a
five.
2/2 creature and costs 7 mana and only hits one creature and only looks at the top. Really, it's actually kind of nothing like a
Nothing
collected
like
company,
nothing like it.
but I guess it is kind of like a collected company.
It's kind of like it in the sense that it is nothing like it.
Sure, I mean it's kind of like it in the sense that it puts a creature into play by looking at cards at the top of your library.
People who need the deck lists. Let me type that in the chat.
And give the people what they
There
need.
you go. Then check out for Spider Spaces specifically. I'll share the link right there.
There you go. Beautiful stuff. Third relic added to the mix. You're not using the graveyard this game, Spider. However you're winning this game, it does not involve the graveyard.
I don't know how Spider Space can win without the graveyard when Fluffy Wolf is holding down the fort on the ground here.
Yeah, to me, it certainly looks like we're going to have to start getting these creatures out of the way and start attacking with our 5 mana in play. But a stomp, a huge, huge pickup for Fluffy Wolf, being able to pick that Lurrus off the table. And that really, really shuts down a lot of Spider's options as the game progresses, especially for baiting out relic interactions. Fluffy Wolf, I think it just took Spider Space too long to get started. Even with Fluffy Wolf getting stuck on one land in Utopia Sprawl, the relics just did a great job buying enough time. And I mean, already we see, Fluffy Wolf a land away from things like Obosh, all the 5 mana plays unlocked, no cards in hand, but Spider's not using the graveyard anytime soon. He's not really getting a lot done. So I think this is more than enough to buy Fluffy Wolf the time they need to deploy some of their bigger threats, things that cost 5 mana. Even just Obosh really represents the biggest thing on the board by a lot here.
Interesting. Spider Space just Seal of Fired his own Lurrus to counter the stomp. That way,
he doesn't want that
which prevents Fluffy
hitting
Wolf too from getting the Bone Crusher Giant in the future. So
wow, we hit a Goblin Engineer. Only what? There's 4 hits in the deck. There's 5 hits in the deck, and we hit twice. There was 2 Goblin Engineers in that pile. Impressive stuff. And also, you look at the top 5. I'm sorry, I said the top 3 earlier. You look at the top 5. So you do get a couple more looks, and we found a Goblin Engineer. A relic in play. I think Spider really wishes he had another fetch here. That way we could grab an artifact and do something meaningful with it. We'll go ahead and grab a Bobble. Fluffy Wolf, not playing any games. Going to go ahead and get that one out the way.
Was it even worth grabbing anything there, to be honest?
Potentially. If you want something just out of your deck, it's probably worth your time.
Forced Fluffy Wolf to completely tap out with the relics, but he still has that 1 open mana, which can exile the entire graveyard.
Precisely.
So
another Astrolabe picks up another land, and this is a lot of lands for Spider Space. This is a lot of mana.
This is what happens when you keep 5 land hands.
So aggressive. So aggressive. But you're right. You're right. I mean, this is kind of the potential downside that happens if you keep a hand that has functional mana and is looking to let your cards line up with their cards. Like our cards on Spider Space's side, the cards did not line up very well at all against Fluffy Wolf's cards. And Fluffy Wolf, despite the egregious stumble, I mean, a huge stumble from Fluffy Wolf, still in a very, very commanding position in this game. I think we're going to immediately see Obosh added to the board as another land was picked up. Now the Seasoned Pyromancer represents a lot more damage than it did before. And I mean, this is an attack for what, 4? Not great blocks. It's just the door is certainly closing for Spider Space. He's going to really need to make something happen here over the next like turn or two. Engineered Explosives, obviously a really good draw. Engineered Explosives on 1 opens up a lot of the graveyard options. They don't really have a lot of cards to get things started anymore. Little brick off Keenan, doesn't not too surprising. Going to go ahead and see a block from Keenan as well. Not really adding anything else.
He's got plenty of mana here.
Yeah, to this game right now with all the mana still in play. That one's going to leave the graveyard immediately. Fluffy Wolf on top of it. No cards for you. Flood Strand 2, don't care. Get that out of there too. I got plenty of relics and they're going nowhere.
Man, 3 relics here. Now, if you were
Fluffy
Wolf, would you hold up all 3 and just keep pressuring with the Obosh? Or would you be tempted to crack one just to draw a card to maybe get into a little bit faster clock?
As long as I'm using my mana, I'm pretty interested in just keeping the relics around. I liked not doing it this turn if we haven't so far. Next turn, if we draw a card that isn't really worth anything, I would not hate seeing like cracking a relic or so. Like I think like Spider's pretty low. Like yeah, see we drew a land there. You'd see him fetching. I'm pretty interested in going ahead and cracking a relic. But actually, is there a Seasoned Pyromancer in the graveyard? If there is. I don't mind just activating that Seasoned Pyromancer that's in the graveyard from the trade over cracking something like a relic, especially before you crack the relic, right? Because you want to get value out of that. And so see that's kind of what Fluffy's going for here.
You can activate the Seasoned Pyromancer and still have 1 mana left to crack a relic if you need to.
Yeah. That's the turn I expect we'll see from Fluffy is in-step kind of activate the Seasoned Pyromancer, put 2 more tokens in play, represent a lot more damage, then just go ahead and crack a relic, try to find some more action for the next turn.
Not much going on for Spider Space right now. We didn't see the
an untap. Very interesting.
Didn't see the activation of the Seasoned Pyromancer tokens.
I mean, we see an attack with everything. I mean, I think that would have represented lethal this turn, whereas right now, Spider's only going to 2. It was a very, very strange play. And like drawing cards from these relics represents drawing to Bone Crusher Giant for lethal. So I wouldn't mind seeing some main phase cracks here. This game looks all but over, and I'm not really super interested in giving Spider Space another draw step or 2 to try to find an answer. But he doesn't.
I don't think it matters. I think Engineered Explosives is his only out at the moment.
Agreed. I agree that Engineered Explosives is the only out, and even still, Obosh represents lethal by himself, so he still needs to produce a blocker for that, and still eventually try to move towards winning the game. You know, that plays to keep Spider Space alive, but he's not really getting anywhere. He's throwing away resources just to stay in the game a little bit longer, which is certainly not a winning strategy by any means. So, I imagine Spider Space dead here does not really matter one way or the other, but I wouldn't mind Fluffy Wolf, closing this game out a little bit quicker. Just not really giving Spider any kind of outs. Don't let these scenarios happen. Things like Engineered Explosive, stuff like that. Don't let those games. Don't even give them a chance. Don't give them outs, even if it looks like it doesn't matter. You got to continue to play tight, even when you're ahead. We're gonna see. Here we go. The Seasoned Pyromancer flashback. Got that one together. Lethal has been assembled. We're going to see a concession from from Spider Space. I'll get these names right eventually. And we go on to game 3. Engineered Explosives, 4 cards down. See him kind of hovering over that one. Still quite a bit of time. And the third end-or breach the process wouldn't be great either. So the Graveyard Hate shut down. We see Spider kind of looking at that repeal like, ugh, if there's that many relics or whatever, like those cards felt like a beating. We have to add those.
To buy you a little bit of time.
Yeah, add a little bit. Actually, if it's that much of a problem, I wouldn't mind seeing Pithing Needle added to the deck. Immediately, 1 card, artifact, shuts down all of the relics to Progenitus. That's pretty intriguing to me.
Fluffy Wolf is bringing back in a bunch of pillages, so Pithing Needle is a little bit weaker than something like EE or Repeal, because it can be
I still like that trade. Pithing Needle being answered by a 3-mana card, I think, is a trade that Spider Space on average is going to be pretty excited about.
That's fair.
Trading one mana. I mean, you're trading one for one. You're trading a 1 mana card for a 3 mana card, and like those pillagers are still going to have targets, right? Like there are still artifacts in this deck that you're going to want to keep in play. There's still lands on the battlefield that you're going to want to keep in play. So pillage is going to have targets no matter what. Overloading it with something like Pithing Needle is something I'm pretty attracted to.
I'm excited. This is a game 3 here. Game
Yeah, game three.
3.
I mean, this is an elimination match. Whichever player loses is packing up, going home, and out of here with their deck. With the other one advances.
This is a much better hand. This
Yeah,
has
this hand certainly looks like it has a lot more going
an
for it.
engine piece, an answer for the Arbor Elf,
Yeah.
card selection thanks to the Bauble, and also the Astrolabe. So you can actually peek and get a kind of like the free opt with the Bauble trick where you look at the top card of your deck. If you don't like it, you can fetch away. Now Spider Space's mana doesn't really let him do that because he probably wants to crack and play the Astrolabe just to be mana efficient anyway. But is a possibility he could do something like that.
Right. And I'm not sure how attracted Spider Space is to playing, like being mana efficient and playing the grinding station on 2. He might end up just doing something like playing like you said, Astrolabe on 1, be mana efficient with that, get your land set up,
Yep.
and then you can kind of play it by ear on turn 2. That way you can seal a fire if you want without having to worry about any kind of fetch land cracks. You also have a second fetch land for the Bauble to kind of get some value off of looking at the top card on the following turn. And I mean that all you can still be mana efficient with your plays. You just don't end up playing the 2 mana spell. So we'll see exactly how Spider Space wants to sequence things. There's a lot of options here for however he thinks is appropriate, but no matter what, I mean, I expect this hand. This hand has a lot going for it. A lot of what was going for the last hand, but with a lot more actual real cards in it, right? Cards that have actual text and aren't just additional lands. You have multiple redraws with a little bit more information. You have functional mana, which was one of the attractive things about the previous hand, and interaction for something like an Arbor Elf, which is once again one of the attractive things about the hand we saw in Game 2.
Killing an Arbor Elf can sometimes buy you a couple turns, which is the whole reason why
Exactly.
Seal of Fire was brought in here. Once
Oh,
again,
Spider.
Utopia Sprawl.
Little bit of a tilt there. Another Utopia Sprawl, Seal of Fire, looking a lot less impressive than I think Spider Space would like. But a Chromatic Star still allows for pretty good mana efficiency here. I like leading off with the Bauble, looking at the top card. Engineered Explosives is a nice one. I suspect we're really going to want to draw that one on Spider Space's side, and we'll see what he chooses to do with his mana instead.
Either Star and Fire or Grinding Station here.
I think I kind of like the Grinding Station. Just getting it in play. Yeah, I like this a lot. Getting it in play, preparing kind of to set up for a combo turn. If we draw something like an Underworld Breach, perhaps we set up a combo on the following turn. Needs a little bit more help, but it's still good mana efficiency and allows you a lot of options for things like the turn you play Lurrus or whatever, right? Like even if you get it with a graveyard hate, you can immediately burst some cards into your graveyard and have the potential to get some value off Lurrus even around graveyard hate. But
I do want to point out how well Spider Space just played with his own Mishra's Bauble there. A lot of people when they play with Mishra's Bauble, they want to be like, oh, put it in play, crack it right away, get the card. Oh, blah, blah, blah. It makes my deck a 56-card deck, which is true. But Spider Space was like, no, this is opt, and I'm going to wait till I can use it with the Flooded Strand. He was very patient there. There was no need to rush. He knows he's trying to set up for a turn 3 or turn 4 kill. And he didn't just try to get a card with no value out of it. Instead, he said, no, I'm going to look at the top card. If I don't like it, I'll shuffle it away to try to get closer to my combo pieces. So some good patience with Mishra's Bauble, definitely showing skill in using that card.
So I imagine what we'll see here is prior to the cracking of this Engineered Explosives, I expect we'll see this Astrolabe sack to put 3 cards in the graveyard. Maybe I don't. It's a little interesting on the timing because like you can kind of pass priority and offer to not get value out of your Astrolabe in order for them to not get value out of their relic. But if they do something like sack their relic, you can hold priority after that resolves and then put more cards in your graveyard with your Astrolabe. So it's kind of a weird game of chicken where Fluffy Wolf can accept to get no value out of the. Yeah, here we go. This is exactly what we're seeing here. Here's activating Engineered Explosives, pass priority. And then Fluffy Wolf's like, well, I want my card. And so Spider's like, all right, sure, nuke the graveyards. Mm-hmm. And then with that on the stack, I'm going to sack my Astrolabe. I like this sequencing a lot. I mean, this is something that can be easy to miss in paper where you're like, oh, I'm about to lose my Astrolabe. I'm going to go ahead and sack it. But then you just get those cards exiled immediately. Whereas the way priority works, you can actually change the way that holding pattern actually works by being able to pass priority, make them act first, and then being able to act after they activate their relic.
Absolutely. Very well played. Again, very patient play from Spider Space here.
And we got good options this turn as well. I mean, Fluffy Wolf is kind of representing Bone Crusher Giant to be able to kill Lurrus. But I mean, this still, even if that's what happens, we have Lurrus into Astrolabe this turn, which is a very good turn, right? You get to commit your creature to play and immediately get value out of it, which is kind of what Lurrus always wants to be doing. But it looks like Lurrus is actually a little hard to cast at the moment. So we may not even be able to do that.
Could use a Chromatic Star to cast Lurrus, but
Yeah, that's true. It does require burning the star, but you do get the card back immediately, and getting Lurrus in play is worth a lot. But we see the Seal of Fire reached for instead. Um, I think that's pretty reasonable. Like, if Fluffy Wolf's interested in holding up mana, that's something Spider Space I think can agree with. He has a lot more mana to hold up, as well as a lot more game actions he can do on a more efficient rate. So, if Fluffy Wolf wants to sit there and take draw steps, yeah. I think if Fluffy Wolf wants to sit here in this holding pattern, I think Spider Space is pretty excited about that because the plays from Fluffy Wolf are going to be more expensive on average than his plays.
This is something that's very important to double spell in Magic. Also, Fluffy Wolf does not have any pressure on the board right now, so there's no real reason for Spider Space to quickly try to combo. He's not under any pressure. Even that, Seasoned Pyromancer discarding 2 lands, not getting any elementals along with it, is kind of telling me that Fluffy Wolf has a handful, or did have a handful of lands right there.
Yeah, certainly either a very reactive hand, like I said, something like Bone Crusher Giant, maybe all Fluffy Wolf has available to them, and like some slow interactive pieces and some lands, which Fluffy Wolf correctly realizes, this position isn't favoring me. I need to get something moving. Plays Seasoned Pyromancer, moves some of the lands out of the hand into the graveyard, puts a creature in play, and is kind of preparing, to kind of actually be able to pressure Spider Space with even something like an Obosh next turn and an attack for 4. Like, Spider Space has done a fair bit of damage to himself. He's at 14. There's not been a lot of attacks from the Fluffy Wolf side of things.
There's been nothing. Fluffy Wolf this game has cast
Exactly.
Utopia Sprawl and Seasoned Pyromancer, discarding 2 lands. That's it.
Exactly. So, and still Spider Space add a little life total.
In the
So
relic.
something like an Obosh next turn really turns the heat up. And so now I think we're going to see Spider kind of considering Lurrus. I like this a lot more. Bone Crusher Giant would have to be played on Fluffy Wolf's turn, interrupting the ability to play Obosh. I don't know how many lightning bolts are available to. Looks like 4 lightning bolts in the deck, so this might just be representing a lightning bolt, which would be actually kind of the disaster scenario here. Like, we still get value immediately. I think Spider is expecting this Lurrus to die no matter what. It's just a question of, can the Lurrus dying disrupt Fluffy Wolf's curve? Can we disrupt Fluffy Wolf from playing a 5-mana spell by putting Lurrus in play and making Fluffy Wolf remove it? Because that buys more time. And with this grab of Forest, grab Veil of Summer. Does that yeah, it draws the card because Lurrus is black. So it was just cycling a Veil of Summer. Very interesting to see that card in the deck. I guess after the Metallic Rebukes, we expected, those to stay in the deck and kind of be very impactful. But still, only like 2 Metallic Rebukes. Not a whole lot of like discard spells or anything. So pretty interesting to see that card come in.
2 Mystical Disputes in the side, but those aren't going to come in. So
those are probably not coming against the red-green deck.
Yeah, this is open deck list. I'm surprised to see that Veil.
I agree. I mean, it did cycle here, so I guess it could have been a lot worse. But yeah, that Veil was an interesting one. Kitchen Finks, like I said, added to the board. Looks like Seal of Fire ended up picking off the Seasoned Pyromancer, which to bring back is a lot of mana, and Spider has a lot going on. So I think that was a pretty good play from Spider Space. We'll see if we're interested in doing something like preserving a little bit more time with this Spell Bomber if we want to cycle it immediately, which does appear to be the case. Another land doesn't open up a whole lot of options, and Spider appears to be flooding yet again. Not really kind of what you expect this deck to do. This deck has kind of a lot of options available to it as far as like filtering with things like Bobble and even like you can use the Thassa's Oracle. You just have a lot of things that give you spells. Even activating Keenan if you're flooded on mana can get you Engineer, which represents a spell. Like, yeah, we see the Thassa's Oracle put into play just to try to find something. And both of those cards, excellent spells. Underworld Breach, I believe, represents lethal on the following turn. Those are basically the best 2 spells, but you can only keep 1. Underworld Breach allows you to cast Keenan, which will allow, I believe, Spider Space to go off with this Mox Amber in hand on the following turn, provided nothing bad happens this turn. So we'll see. Fluffy Wolf has a pretty critical turn here.
Spider Space does have that Seal of Primordium to protect from most of the hate that Fluffy Wolf will bring in, with the exception of that pillage, which could make him lose the grinding station, need 2 more mana. But a 6 power Kitchen Finks. I don't like this attack here because Thassa's Oracle being in the graveyard makes Spider Space's comboing easier.
Yeah, it does. I mean, Spider Space would still be able to combo, just like
Yeah.
Seal of Fire it twice seems pretty face up. And I believe Fluffy Wolf is now doing the math on, is there anything that blows me out for just jamming? Because he does have another turn if he wants it. But I don't think there is. I think that's the conclusion he's reaching as well. Pay some life, put this Underworld Breach into play, and it's off to the races.
He might not have another turn, actually. If there is a dragon in Fluffy Wolf's hand with Obosh, that's a lot of damage. 8 off of the dragon, 6 off the Obosh, 6 off the Kitchen Finks. I don't think Spider Space has another turn. And that's assuming that Fluffy Wolf has another card in his hand, but I think it's a safe assessment at this point. Plus, he's staring down lethal right now just from the Kitchen Finks and the Obosh.
That's true. That's true. I mean, he had a few more life points a second ago, but
yeah, he did.
We have we have gotten rid of those. We're all in on this combo. If this doesn't work, we're dead. But I believe Spider Space has correctly analyzed that there is nothing that Fluffy Wolf can do that will disrupt this combo turn. Even something like a Lightning Bolt, Keenan can just be replayed and makes 2 mana with each Mox Amber return. So it's just not really anything, and I don't even think we need it. Like, I think we can just continue to combo like this. We don't even need to be making mana every turn. We don't even need to cast Keenan. There's no reason to open ourselves up to a bolt at all anyway. It's just kind of all the options for Spider Space. And I think we're once again kind of in that situation of how long is Spider Space going to do the clicking before the game ends officially? Because I believe this is all rolled up for Spider Space here.
I'm 100% sure this is over. So I'm going to ask you what your favorite type of ice cream is.
My favorite type of ice cream. I'm one of those people that really likes cookies and cream. I'm not a chocolate ice cream fan. I don't actually like chocolate in general. That's kind of the thing people find weird about me. Chocolate's just like not good to me. And I think it was mostly because I was allergic to eggs as a kid. So I didn't really grow up on sweets, especially chocolatey sweets that had things like nougat in them. So I didn't eat a lot of chocolate growing up. Never have. Not a huge fan. So I always like vanilla strawberry ice creams. But my absolute favorite is like the cookies and cream flavoring. I just really like, I don't know, I just really like that flavor.
It's good.
Of the standard. That's just what I'm about.
You gotta add a little bit of cookie dough to it though, and that just makes it a little bit better in my opinion.
Yeah, I love cookie dough. Cookie dough is great. Homemade ice cream's good too. I actually had for the first time, it was my birthday in July, and the weekend of my birthday was SCG Philly this year. So I spent an extra day or so in Philly, just kind of doing stuff around, maybe try a few good Philly cheesesteaks, and get some good food. But it was like really hot because my birthday's in July. And so I went to this rolled ice cream place. My first time ever having rolled ice cream. Super interesting stuff. They put the ice cream out on the table and they literally roll it. It's on the table as this it's almost like dough, and they're folding it and stuff. And then they roll it up and put it in these cups for you. It was really, really interesting and really, really good. But yeah, that ice cream, some of my more favorite ice cream I've actually had. And we do see that Thassa's Oracle wins the match here. Spider Space rolls it up, did the clicking done. Good job, Spider Space. And Fluffy Wolf, a noble try, but 1 relic not as good as 3 relics. And Fluffy Wolf's red-green Lucka Monsters is eliminated, and they are eliminated. Spider Space moving on. We're going to see them play Garrett Martin later today in yet another elimination match. Every match tonight, elimination match. Now we have 8 players gone. Half the league's gone. What do we do? Before that, though, you're on that chopping block, Mr. Michael Goldenberg. You are on that chopping block next. So hope you're ready. Anything you want to comment about that match?
Gonna play Yama Killer next, and he's on a very fast deck. And I'm still stuck with the only deck I have left. Amulet Titan Karn.
That's the worst deck to be stuck with.
Yeah. One thing I did notice so far from the matches tonight, I think Francisco had a terrible matchup playing against Amulet Titan. That's just the way sometimes the elimination brackets work. We're just stuck on one deck in this tournament. If that's all you got left, there's no counter. You just gotta hope to get lucky. Right. I also think Fluffy Wolf's deck is super sweet, right? But that is not a great matchup for him.
Agreed.
With the Spider Space Breach, I do think Spider Space helped him a little bit game 2 with that keep of a 5-land, and a ramp spell effectively right hand.
Yeah, lot of mana, in that second hand.
And a 19-land deck. Yeah, a lot of mana.
A lot of mana.
So we are half done right now. So far, looking at the bracket, the next one is Yamakilla versus me, and as Drake just said, Garrett against Spider Space will close out the night. So we'll show you the updated bracket, the elimination bracket. You can see that Spider Space has moved on. And unfortunately, Fluffy Wolf 2 is eliminated. Mr.
Bates.
Drake Sasser being 3-0 is sitting at saying, I'm so far away from being
I
eliminated.
got a lot of losing to do. Don't
Yeah.
worry. Always have faith in me. I can make it happen. I can do the
Okay.
losing. You gotta have a little bit of faith in me. I'm pretty good at losing. Pretty good at it.
Perfect. Your track record says otherwise, but I'll believe you.
Current. But we'll see. We'll see.
So
Never count me out.
we'll be back in just a minute. You'll be because I'm playing. You'll have Drake give you commentary for yet again another Amulet Titan matchup. This one will be from my perspective. So we'll see you in just a minute.
Awesome. All right, and so we are jumping right into the action, and we're going to be watching Saint Doom with his only deck left. Can Amulet Titan carry the team the rest of the way? We're going to find out here in a second. Up against Yama Killer, very, very prominent Moto grinder. I have a lot of respect for him as a player, and he's going to be playing some Luris Scales, playing the very powerful Luris of the Dream Den. We've seen it in a lot of strategies, but we have not seen it really in the Scales deck. Scales deck was one of those decks that incidentally got a huge nerf along with the Mox Opal ban, and so we'll see kind of what that deck's about, what that deck's like now. Turn one, the modular one creature, what's it? Arcbound Worker is the card with an Arcbound Ravager on turn two. One of the better starts, but St. Doom's hand has some Karn, the Great Creators inside in it. And that forest we just picked up will allow for a turn two Asusa, which will allow us to be able to maintain a bunch of land drops while being able to actually represent Karn next turn and then potentially Titan on the following turn. But Karn does shut down one of Yama Killer's lands, shuts down Citadel, shuts down the Arcbound Ravager. So really we're going to need to see a really explosive turn from Yama Killer next turn, like something like an Inkmoth kill, which is very much in the cards. I mean, we're going to need some like Welding Jars, some zero mana artifacts, stuff like that, before we're going to be able to line up a turn two kill. A turn three kill. But Scales has been known to do it before. This is kind of one of the draws that Classic Affinity had that made it so powerful. Another artifact land certainly adds to the mix. Another Arcbound Worker certainly adds to the mix. Throne of Geth tapping Inkmoth means we're not getting lethal this turn. I think we didn't have it anyway. We had 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, we had 8. We get 8 poison. Looks like we were too short which means, I mean, we're going to get a big hit in with this Throne of Geth here, sacrificing one of those lands. But Karn the Great Creator is a card that Yamakiller knows is potentially in St. Doom's hand. He knows he's up against the 4 Karn deck. Titan a huge pickup for St. Doom, and here comes Karn. Let's see where Yamakiller wants those counters to move from that Arcbound Ravager, because we got to do stuff now, or that Ravager's getting shut off. Sacrifice one of the workers. Ravager will get a counter, and then the modular one will move on to the other Arcbound worker. Looks like we're going to make 2 large attackers here, kind of represent being able to kill the Karn by just attacking, or else you have to block with the mana enablers. Sacking both the Throne and the Darksteel Citadel, neither of which are going to have text against Karn. He ends up with 9 power in play. That's a 2-turn clock on just attacks. Also, Arcbound Ravager represents being able to kill Karn on its own, so St. Doom certainly has to block that one if he's interested in keeping Karn around. And that's all banking on Karn staying at this loyalty. Like, if it goes up a loyalty, both creatures have to connect. But if he decides to down ticket and get some value immediately, then he has to block both creatures in order to keep the Karn around. So we'll see what he decides to do. Plussing it up guarantees it survives with any block. Does not have to block both creatures or anything like that. He can block any single creature on the battlefield right now. We'll be able to keep Karn around to potentially untap with some loyalty. We'll see what kind of blocks St. Doom wants to line up. But with a second Karn dialed up and Primeval Titan, I think St. Doom's just sitting in a really good spot. And Yamakiller just sacked his second and third land, so even if he's willing to commit this much to getting 1 Karn off the table, I can't imagine that he's going to have too much of a counterplay to the second Karn. But we'll see exactly how things play out. Metallic Mimic, that's another artifact of the board, threatens to pump any future, looks like constructs. Can't super see well, but there's only 1 card left in Yamakiller's hand, so we'll see how that lines up. Amulet of Vigor, a pretty big draw, makes this Primeval Titan look a lot more scary. And with Dryad of the Elysian Grove added to the mix, it represents potentially lethal with the Primeval Titan next turn. Also very interested to see Karn animating the Primeval Vigor. I'm sorry, Amulet of Vigor. Primeval Vigor, doing it. Amulet of Vigor, turning it into a 1/1, as that is its converted mana cost. Looks like there are no removal spells in Yamako's main deck. There's Walking Ballista. So this is a little weak to Walking Ballista. Opens his Amulet up to getting Walking Ballista, and then we'd lose Karn anyway. This attack is pretty aggressive, and I don't imagine there's good blocks that keep Karn alive. So imagine we can go for something like a value block. Yeah, I like the Dryad lined up with the Mimic. This keeps Karn alive, but we lose all of our mana accelerators, and we lose Amulet of Vigor. St. Doom's certainly valuing that first Karn a little higher than I would, I think. But St. Doom, I mean, the Karn is representing being able to shut down, moving the counters over to Inkmoth Nexus. If he does decide to say no blocks, that does open up Yamakiller being able to move all the Ravager counters onto Inkmoth, potentially making Inkmoth lethal, which is probably what St. Doom is really scared of here. And fortunately for him, he picked up the 6th mana source to be able to get Primeval Titan into play with the Dryad still in play. So 2 Valakuts entering will provide 2 triggers if that's something he's interested in. Can potentially deal damage to one of the modular creatures, pick one off the table. Counters will still move around. Karn does not shut that down. I don't know. I like how St. Doom has played. Grabbing a bounce land to give 2 Valakut triggers in order to get 2 more makes a lot of sense to me. Grabbing a second Valakut would provide the same number, I think, but without the mana, and you want to keep the bounce land. I think St. Doom's interested in keeping that bounce land in play to potentially have the next Titan have haste. Also just picks up a bounce land, that's fine. We'll see if he's interested in getting frisky with the Dryad here, if we're going to leave that on defense. Maybe considering a chump block against the now 9/9 Arcbound worker. It's going to be pretty hard for Yamakiller to get this one out. Even though Yamakiller has a 9/9 in play, that Karn really shuts down a lot of the options Yamakiller has available to him. And with a Titan being able to attack next turn, with Valakut already in play, able to get more Valakuts in play, opens up at least the ability for St. Doom to be able to kill all the creatures, if not just straight up kill Yama Killer, who is currently sitting at a fairly low 15 in the face of Valakuts and a Primeval Titan. I can't imagine that we're interested in chump blocking with a Primeval Titan. We do see a Ballista there in hand that would get active by Karn falling here. Karn does end up dying. Walking Ballista is active, though it cannot be for a large amount without this Arcbound Worker dying in some way. And Yama Killer sees the writing on the wall, did the math, even with Karn off the table, just doesn't have enough going for him, chooses to move the sideboard. Makes a lot of sense. I mean, Karn, St. Doom kept off the back of Karn there. Karn did the work that St. Doom needed him to, and I mean, this is exactly what he told me earlier in the show, is that this is kind of what he expected to happen. He expected Karn to really make a huge difference, and I think we really, really saw that. Maybe it's a different story. You know, if St. Doom's just a single turn slower, he ends up, dying to an Inkmoth Nexus. But Karn being ramped out with the powerful ramp abilities Amulet has access to, fast enough gets the job done, and we're on to sideboarding. St. Doom reaching for things like Obstinate, Baloth, Beast Within, the Ghost Quarter, which is in the sideboard, Reclamation Sage, and Dismember, I think are all pretty reasonable pickups. Something like an Engineered Explosives might also make a fair bit of sense if he wants to reach for that. Decides to move away from the Baloth. I like not over sideboarding. Yama Killer looks like the only cards that he has access to is 3 Damping Spheres, so the cards in St. Doom's deck that are already good, the things that destroy artifacts, in any sense of the word, are already good in the matchup. Those catch the hate pieces. So this is a spot where Amulet really wants to be. Amulet likes when the cards that disrupt your opponent's game plan also hit the hate cards that are coming in for your deck. So that way, no matter what, your answers to their hate cards are going to be worth their salt when you draw them. They're going to be worth a card. They're going to have relevant text, whether it's just killing some creature that's pressuring you, or if it's killing the hate card. They're going to have text. They're going to be relevant, and that way your deck doesn't feel as diluted when you're sideboarding out pieces of your combo here. So impressive stuff. Impressive stuff from the Amulet Titan deck. Karn looking like a reasonable adaptation in this particular matchup. This hand, a pretty classic Amulet hand, I'll tell you what. A pile of lands, a 3-mana mana creature, and a Titan. You see a lot of these when you play a lot of games of the Amulet, and the range on them being keepable actually varies pretty wildly. I would not be surprised to see St. Doom mulligan here in this matchup due to the fact that this matchup's a little bit faster. And like you can see, this hand doesn't have a Titan, has access to a lot of mana, multiple ramp effects that are 1 mana. This hand's just faster. And I think that's kind of what St. Doom is interested in. Those kinds of hands that we saw from that first hand, those kinds of hands you would keep against slower, fair decks where you're just interested in hitting your land drops, especially in Game 1s. In Game 2, when you're expecting Damping Spheres, having that many bounce lands is a real liability. But you do see those hands kept sometimes. Those are in the range of keepable hands. But in this matchup, you just want something a little bit faster. And so I really like that mulligan from St. Doom we saw there. No play on turn 1, as we have no untapped land to cast this amulet figure. Shouldn't matter, as our turn 2 is going to consist of an amulet as well as a bounce land to put our Sakura Tribe Scout into play. We see the exact same start from the Yama Killer we saw last game, minus a few artifact lands, turn 1 Arcbound Worker into Arcbound Ravager. Arcbound Ravager, generally the most powerful card in the Scales deck, so I expect pretty great things out of that card if Yama Killer gets to untap with it for a couple turns. We see the bounce land interplay, pick up the Field of the Dead, and put Sakura Tribe Scout into play. This is the turn where Yama Killer is going to be looking to play a Damping Sphere if he has one of his 3 from the sideboard. We'll see. Hardened Scales, though, a huge pickup. Second Arcbound Ravager enters with a second counter. That represents a lot of damage. We'll see. Yeah, there's some post-combat sacrifices happening here, and that's 2 instances of counters being added, up to 5 damage. St. Doom down to 14 with 7, looking down 7 power. 2 more cards from Yama Killer. So we'll see. Yama Killer could potentially have lethal next turn. So St. Doom needs to be a little more careful about what he does here. It's pretty attractive to go for something like just playing the Dryad and putting as many lands in play as you can, but there's a very real chance St. Doom is going to need to hold up Beast Within here, or he might end up just dead. But I think we can we just put a Titan into play? Is that good enough? If we put a Titan into play with everything tapped and it's not lethal, then we could just die in the backswing. So we could just put Titan into play, attack, and then leave up a bounce land plus another land that holds up the Beast Within. Or we could maybe try and do some crazy tricks with the mana to be able to get Dryad into play as well. I haven't actually done the math on that to try to figure it out. It's a lot harder when you have the Slayer Stronghold. I'm not used to playing with Slayer Stronghold, as I've played most of my games with the Onawir Battlements recently. But we'll see. I trust in St. June to be able to figure out, do some of the math, sit down, do some math, figure out if Titan plus Dryad is possible for a kill. If not, I suspect we're just going to see him end with 3 mana available to him to cast Beast Within. Chat says you can Titan fetch Dryad Valakut, float 3, and then get 1 Valakut trigger after Titan. Boo! Unaware Battlements is sacrilege. I don't believe you. I think Unaware Battlements is quite a bit better when you want to be grabbing Valakuts as your other land. But we shall see. St. Doom has been beating up people with both Karns and Slayer Strongholds, innovations that I am a fan of neither. Although given how many bounce lands are in St. Doom's hand, I imagine any Valakut shenanigans are going to be pretty hard to pull off this game without accomplishing something else first. So I suspect there's just going to be an attack. Available to Yama Killer is sacrificing the Arcbound Ravager to the other Arcbound Ravager and potentially lining up a block on this Primeval Titan. So we'll see if St. Doom wants to reach for something like, a Teleria West plus a bounce land or something like that, and, simply returning one of the other bounce lands and then return the Teleria West on the following turn, try to have access to another Titan just in case a block happens. But we ended up just grabbing 3 mana, Breeding Pool, plus another flavor of bounce land. Imagine we're going to need to end this turn with one of the tapped bounce lands in our hand that we're representing Beast Within. Let's pick up the Simic Growth Chamber exactly to that end. Let's see what Yama Killer's blocks are going to look like here. Foxbitten's with me. He likes battlements. She likes battlements. Apologies. Then we see, this is a good blowout. Primeval Titan. That's just it. I don't blame Yama Killer in the slightest. We went for a block. Yama Killer knew that a removal spell was going to be a hard one to beat, and goes for the sack, gets blown out by the Beast Within. I like that play a lot because if you have the Beast Within, Yama Killer is very likely dead to it anyway. But it is just kind of funny to watch how that played out. Being able to go for the sacrifice, potentially blocking the Titans, the highest upside, while potentially threatening lethal on the following turn.
There was I do think Yama conceded a little bit too early, because one of the reason I hesitated so long was with that line, I was dead if Yama Killer top decked exactly Damping Sphere, because I could not pay for my Pact with my current mana configuration. Now, granted, Yama Killer didn't know I didn't have another non-bounce green source in my hand, because it could always flash into its Scout, but yeah, that would have been a blowout the other way. But I was up a game, and I figured that was a really, really good spot to, just steal a win if he didn't have the Damping Sphere on the next turn.
Exactly. No Damping Sphere is certainly part of the story of that game, right? Where, your hand consisted of all bounce lands. Any Damping Sphere at any point basically neuters all of your mana acceleration that you have access to, and then going for that Titan. Going for that Titan, attacking with Vigilance does end up actually mattering, because Yama Killer has to, that Vigilance ended up mattering a lot, where he has to actually get that Titan off the battlefield in order to be able to threaten lethal on the following turn. With you being at a low life to level 14, any configurations of cards that he has that'll allow him to go all in on an Arcbound Ravager on the following turn and kill you involves attacking on the ground, because all of his attackers that are going to be not summoning sick are on the ground. So this Titan cannot stay in play. So the play makes perfect sense and is kind of face up from Yama Killer, but Beast Within this, and that was what I was talking about when sideboarding. Beast Within didn't target a Damping Sphere there. Even though that's kind of what you brought it in for, that's kind of the problematic card. It hits anything
too,
in the matchup.
But yeah, Ink Moth or Damping Sphere,
any kind of quick kill.
Yeah, yep. Because Ink Moth is a card I'm terrified of.
Right, exactly. And so your interactive cards that interact with hate, being able to incidentally be able to just pick off things like a large Arcbound Ravager or whatever and represent a blowout in that spot, really puts the Amulet in a good position. And I think we really got to see that come to fruition there in that game with that exact copy of Beast Within because it represented both. If there's no blocks, you're not able to die to an all-in Ravager. If he goes to the block, you beat the all-in Ravager. And so Beast Within just kind of accomplishes everything you want it to, both hitting the hate cards and just instantly hitting the aggressive clock. So good stuff. Beast Within, huge adaptation for Amulet. Started seeing play for Ashiok, and we see just the flexibility of it being able to hit any permanent and mattering a lot there.
It's really good against in the mirror. It's really good against Tron. Beast Within is just the most flexible card in a lot of spots because except against aggro, we really don't care if we give our opponent a 3/3. But unfortunately for Yama Killer, Amulet Titan too strong, and actually I think the story of that was Karn, the Great Creator, was too strong, and
You didn't play a single card in the second game. It was certainly the story of the first game, but I mean, you also had a Titan on that turn, so who knows? Maybe you could have, if you would just put the Ghost Quarter in your deck, you could have just grabbed the Ghost Quarter and Ghost Quarter that Moth. But yeah, who's counting, right?
I got a Ghost Quarter post board, but yeah, I
that's true. You did
for
bring
this
in Ghost
tournament. I
Quarter.
chose to have 2 Cavern main board in the Ghost Quarter side to give myself more green sources game 1 to be able to more consistently cast like a turn 1 scout. So that was the payoff there.
Yeah, that was really awkward in your game 2 hand, having 2 1-mana accelerants and being able to cast neither on turn 1, even though one of them simply requires any color of mana. Couldn't accomplish that. Too many tap lands. Sorry, but we still got the job done. The 1-mana accelerant still represented a bunch of mana, and navigation of the game was impressive. And you move on, Yama Killer. Impressive Moto Grinder. No longer in the Modern Super League. Good work. Can you go? You gonna go all the way with this Amulet Titan deck? Is that what you're gonna do?
I'm hoping. You know,
the old Tenno Saint Doom is back. Tenno Saint Doom is back.
Well, it would be X2 Saint Doom. That's the goal. That's the goal. We'll
see.
Yeah,
we don't worry about past records. Don't count. Past records don't count.
Okay. So the next matchup we have is Garrett Martin against Spider Space, and I believe I'll double check the bracket, but I believe I play the winner of that matchup. Because now it's just the elimination bracket keeps playing. We keep playing the winner, then the winner, the winner, and the winner. Keep going.
Sure. Yeah, it just cascades through. Just the league shrinks by a player each match we watch. So I mean, that's interesting stuff. We're down 3 of our 4 tonight, and we're gonna find out. Garrett, Spider Space, who stays, who goes. It feels like a really high tense episode of Survivor or something. You know, who gets voted off the island by way of Magic games.
Absolutely. I did just get a submission from Francisco, and I want to see if I can put it in right now or right between this little bit. He submitted a deck tech video, but unfortunately I got it a little bit too late to do it right before the match, but I have it now, and I want to see if I can...
Wouldn't mind seeing some more Francisco. I have missed my my old caster in crime.
Everybody can use some more Francisco, right? So I want to see if I can just add this in so we can have this during, right? We'll see the updated brackets. We'll see Francisco's video, and then we'll jump into a match that isn't Francisco, but we could all use more Francisco in our lives, so I think it's appropriate. We'll jump into our last match of the night, Garrett Martin against Spider Space. Spider Space still in that same deck that we just saw there.
All right. Good stuff. Spider Space. Some more Breach. I'm excited to watch a little bit more Breach. That deck's kind of wild, so pretty excited to watch Garrett versus Martin. What is Garrett's last deck? Let's see if we can find out what that is. Looks like Zerda Helliot Company. All right, this should be an interesting match.
Yep.
Collected Company versus Pseudo Collected Company, as you'd call it.
That's the deck that beat my Jund deck, so...
Oh, the Collected Company deck, huh?
So if Garrett wins, there'll be a rematch. And if Spider Space wins, well, I've never beaten Spider Space before. We've played a couple times in leagues, and right now he's 2-0 against me, so that doesn't look good for me either.
Uh-oh. It sounds like the end of your little winning streak here, huh?
But I will say this. Karn the Great Creator is very good against Walking Ballista and very good against Breach decks because of all those artifacts.
Yeah, I'd imagine it's pretty good against Mox Amber, Grinding Station, and Arkham's Astrolabe decks. So we'll see. We'll see. Our viewers are going to have to wait till next week to see that and see how any of that's going to play out. But in the meantime, we got Spider Space versus Zerda Company up next. Last match of the night.
Hello and welcome. This is Francisco here, and I'm bringing to you today Astral Ren. This is a deck based around Astral Drift, which is a reprint from Astral Slide, a card from back in Onslaught, that gets you value. It allows you to blink both your creatures and your opponent's creatures every time you cycle a card. And Modern Horizons actually made the 1 mana cycling lands legal in Modern. So we have access to Tranquil Thicket and Forgotten Cave. This is a very, very cheap way that we can start getting value with Astral Drift every single turn. Of course, we also have Ren and 6, which allows us to rebuy these lands every single turn and get even more value. The way that we do is Astral Drift allows us to control the board, exciting our opponent's creatures, and it also gives us value with Eternal Witness, Renegade Rallier, Wall of Blossoms, Handmaster of the Fells, and Thrugtusk. Every single one of these creatures just give you value, and when you start blinking them, especially blinking Thrugtusk, feels just absolutely disgusting. Eternal Witness allows you to draw cards for free, which is also pretty nice. The rest of the deck is basically just mana creatures to get ahead on mana. This is actually super important. Like the games where you start with the mana creatures are so much better than those that you don't. And these are particularly important because we have actually a reasonable enough ETB tapped lands. So just going turn 1 mana creature allows you to like play a Ren on turn 2 while playing a tap land as well if necessary, or you can maybe cycle. Scavenging Ooze is there because we struggle against the graveyard decks like Dredge and stuff like that. So it's, even though it doesn't give you value on ETB, it's just an overall very good card. It's also incidental life gain against all the aggressive strategies, and it can exile stuff so lurers can't play it back. Lightning Helix is there because even though we have a bunch of incidental life gain, the mono red matchups is not particularly great because we actually are slow out of the gate. So the mono red decks can actually outrace us very quickly in the early game. The sideboard has more ETB creatures, including Avalanche Riders, against the big mana decks, which are by far our worst matchup. Particularly Amulet Titan, it's awful for us. And Knight of Autumn, in order to destroy enchantments like Ensnaring Bridge and artifacts like Ensnaring Bridge and enchantments that can be annoying like Blood Moon and stuff. Even Mind Sensor again because we struggle against the big mana, and it's also pretty good against Storm and stuff like that. Grafdigger's Cage against the combo decks, Neo Brand, etc. Path to Exile as removal alongside a Celestial Purge, of course. Because it can exile the creatures from the mono red deck, and it can also exile Lurus and Death Shadows and stuff like that. Damping Sphere against the combo decks and big mana again, and Veil of Summer against the counter spell and discard spells decks. I hope you enjoy this deck. It's a ton of fun, and you're gonna see it in action in this MSL. Thank you, and I will see you around. Bye bye.
All right, looks like we're hopping in. We're going to be watching Spider Space again. Excited to watch more of this Breach deck from the side of the Breach, because this deck hurts my head, and I wouldn't even like be able to begin to commentate on if it was on the other side of the table. The options, I would be like, I don't know, Spider might be killing us next turn. Who knows? But being able to watch from this side certainly opens up a lot more discussion around the options and kind of just how to play a combo deck, like what your turns need to look like, assessing whether or not you have more time, and opening hands, which have been rather contentious tonight in the opening hands discussion. What do you think of this one here?
I like this hand. It's 2 cantrips and an important piece to the combo. This is very different than the 5 land hand that Spider Space
forever
came
daggering.
before. Plus, this one's on the draw.
A nice one if we're on the play. Yeah. That repeal would be a really good one on the play. We'd be able to bounce this Noble Hierarch on turn 2 and draw a card, just kind of cantrip and disrupt the Heliod Company deck's mana acceleration a little bit. Repeal looking a lot more awkward on the draw, but I don't know, it may line up pretty well against a combo piece or something down the line. And Spider Space still has a lot of good options. We see the Bobble trick that you were talking about, chose to fetch that one away. Not worth it. Not worth the mana inefficiency. And we drew straight into Grinding Station. A good draw. Very, very good draw there.
Repeal is actually one of the few pieces of interaction that can actually deal with the Heliod in play as well.
Precisely, yeah. Being able to pick up an enchantment. I mean, indestructible enchantments, things that aren't a creature, stuff like that. Very difficult to answer by the commonly played removal spells in Modern. But a bounce spell does at least answer it for a turn. And the Heliod's an expensive card, but so we may be reaching for something like that, given that we are on the draw. Spider reading the wall of text that is Zerda's text box
so much
gives it a little look. Oh my gosh, it is.
Oh,
Underworld Breach. You see him sit back. Do we assemble lethal? Did we do it? I think we need a little bit more help.
I think we need one more turn, but I have not. I've only talked about this deck and watched Spider Space play it. I haven't piloted it myself, and I think we need one more turn because you play the
I think
grinding
so too.
station. We need grinding station in play when we cast Underworld Breach.
Right. This looks like a turn 3 kill to me, which is impressive. And the spider doing a little tippy tap, trying to figure out, all right, like now that this is added to the mix, what are my options? What makes sense? What pieces of interaction does the Heliod company have access to? Looks like any scavenging oozes. Do we have anything like that? Looks like we do not. Yeah, the scavenging is something they could reach for, but it does not look like there's any scavenging oozes in the main deck. Just kind of figuring out what matters. Getting the grinding station in place seems safe. To Spider Space couldn't come up with a way that he dies next turn. I can't think of one either, so I'd like to play a lot. Set up for a turn 3 kill and just kind of say, all right, what you got, Garrett? Because my hand's good.
Now Garrett could gain infinite life right now for the Lucky Collected Company, but infinite life doesn't beat Thassa's Oracle, so
Yeah,
it's not
that's
even.
infinite life. One of the rare cases, infinite life, not good enough. There's a few spots in modern where it's not good enough, but this is certainly one of them. And walking ballista will trigger the grinding station. That's one that people miss a lot in paper. Other players,
Yeah.
your opponent's artifacts entering the battlefield does trigger the grinding station, but thankfully Magic Online always here to remind you. And this looks like a kill to me, and I don't even think this walking ballista as a piece of interaction matters too much. Am I right?
Not at all. You don't have to cast Loris here. And
Oh
Thassa's
no,
Oracle.
it does matter a little bit, right? Because you need a second mana to cast Thassa's Oracle. But repeal can pick up the walking ballista for 1 mana. So if we play a blue land, we can pay 1 blue mana and repeal the walking ballista, and then we can just go off with the Mox Amber, and we have exactly 2 blue to cast Thassa's Oracle. Oh no, but we still need to cast the breach. Never mind. I don't really see a way we actually go off this turn without getting a legend in play, and walking ballista is going to make that a little harder. So Spider Space gonna have to figure this one out. See, this is what happens when I try to figure this deck out. I'd already be casting spells and like trying to go off, and halfway through, I'd be like, "Wait a minute."
Chat saying how many times they've lost to infinite life. Yeah, losing to infinite life stinks, and this is certainly a deck.
Tron was very good at beating infinite life. You should exile their permanents, restart the game with card. Pretty fun magic. Or you can just deck them with Ulamog now. It depends on what point in time. But Tron was pretty notorious for being able to beat infinite life pretty easily.
It's like Spider Space is going to Goblin Engineer, pick up an important piece, and then repeal the Walking Ballista on the end step. Probably
like this guy
after Garrett invests mana in it to pump it up.
Yeah, that's a potential out for sure. I mean, we know we're probably losing this ballista. We're losing this Goblin Engineer to the ballista, no matter which way we sequence things. Spider Space getting the extra card in graveyard doesn't matter all that much. What he's hoping to do here, I think, is more or less just tie up Garrett's mana. That way, he can go off next turn with his clean 4 mana. And a Heliod entering play doesn't appear to add a whole lot to the mix.
And now, if you're Garrett right here, do you kill the Goblin Engineer or do you accept the repeal and just ping 1 to face?
Given that Heliod plus Ballista is an infinite combo, it feels more tempting to just go ahead and pick it up. But it appears that, I mean, we've pinged the Goblin Engineer for 1 already. It appears that...
Okay, he accepted it.
Fortunate just picking it up, yeah. That's kind of interesting, because we could have pumped the Ballista for 2 mana, so unless we were planning to give this Zerta lifelink, replaying it on 1 is a little weird to me, because we could have pumped it up for 2 mana, right, with Zerta. Does Zerta reduce the cost by 2?
Mm-hmm.
And then you can ping the... I just need to read Zerta. That's what needs to happen.
There's so much text on Zerta that you just can't...
Yeah, Zerta could have pumped the Ballista up 1 more, and then we could have killed the Goblin Engineer and then just had it in hand. It doesn't end up in play this way, but a Ballista in play on 1, I don't think opens up a ton of options for Garrett, given that he's going to his next turn with the potential to have 6 mana. Either way, as neither here nor there, we're going to see Luris, looks like, interplay this turn. That will allow the Mox Ambers to tap for mana, and Walking Ballista is not going to be able to kill that one. So I think this means we're in the clear. Yeah, I think that means we're in the clear. The Mox Amber with a red floating We get to cast the Mox Amber out of the yard. So the card we grabbed with Goblin Engineer does matter if we're playing. See, this is why Spider's just great. Like, he just figured all this out. He, like, grabbed a card with Goblin Engineer that allows him to go off on the following turn with enough mana to still cast this Underworld Breach. Just got it all figured out. I'm the ape that just is never going to be able to play this kind of stuff. I can't do it.
Spider Space also has the world's best hair, so that's something.
World's best hair.
Look at that.
An accomplishment in its own right. So what's more impressive, his magic accomplishments or his hair accomplishments? I need to know where we stand.
See, I think he has like A+ hair.
Okay.
It's hard. It's hard. I think he's a solid Magic player. You know, he's definitely like a top 5% Magic player in my opinion. But I think he's top 1%
Must be nice
for
to
hair.
be good at things. I mean, you can be good at hair. You can be good at Magic. You just do them both. A prodigy in both at work, ladies and gentlemen. And on screen for you with wonderful commentary from St. Tomb, and I'm here as well.
My contribution. What's your favorite ice cream? Spider Space, nice hair.
St. Tomb, really focusing on the important things in life. And I have a lot of respect for Garrett for, look, thumbs up from Spider Space. No, I like clicking, but, if we could do a little less clicking, it wouldn't hurt anything.
You guys missed a little chat note right there. Garrett said, "Am I dead?" Spider Space said, "Yes." Garrett conceded.
Yes.
Yes. Nice. Some
right,
good.
So we're on the sideboard. Spider Space pulled up the deck list, so it's a good opportunity for us to do so as well. Mm-hmm. Looks like Caustic Caterpillar is a pretty good option. We have access to something like Dramoka's Command, lesser known, kind of a card that has seen a little bit less play recently. Does have the mode target player sacrifices an enchantment on it. Should be a pretty good one for Underworld Breach. Also have access to Quasali Pride Mage and Scavenging. So a lot of good creature options being picked up by Garrett in the sideboard games. All great ones that hit off Collecting Company as well. Their activated abilities get a little bit cheaper. And they do have activated abilities. So Zerda gets to stay in the companion zone. It's pretty nice little upside. So good sideboard cards that fit the companion slot. Nice options for Garrett. And it looks like to hedge, we see Spider Space reaching for the Pirate Spellbomb, Seal of Fire, Pithing Needle. All makes sense to me. Pithing Needle good against the deck of all activated abilities, and 2 removal spells to pick off these creatures we just talked about. So, I don't know. Sideboarding seems pretty straightforward.
Yep. Something that was kind of, maybe we didn't mention too much, but Garrett actually had the win there with the Heliod and the Walking Ballista and the Zerda to pay for, to give
right, yeah. Spider had to go for the repeal there, otherwise he was just dead. And there's a double activation. You couldn't just wait for them to activate. You couldn't get greedy and be like, I'll wait for you to invest more mana, because Zerda makes the activation only cost 1 white. And so Garrett did have the double activation available. Spider did have to pull the trigger on that repeal exactly when he did. So good timing from Spider. I'd expect no less from a world-class hair player, and really good stuff. And this hand has a lot of the same kind of boons that our last hand had that would manage to symbol kill on turn 4. We're seeing the Grinding Station, we see the Underworld Breach, we see some early plays as well as a piece of interaction. This hand looks very, very familiar. I feel like we've been here before.
I feel like we have as well. Do you repeal right now?
Well, what do we repeal?
Oh, sorry, we can't repeal right now. For some reason I thought that
us being on the draw once again makes this repeal not that good against the Noble Hierarch. If we could, I think I would.
Yes,
I guess that was a little greedy. Question. Like when we're trying to get this Grinding Station into play, but like I said, I think we're very likely to just be going for a turn 4 kill like we did last game anyway. And that Quasali Pride Mage does add quite a bit to the options for Garrett. Being able to destroy this Grinding Station if we just go for it means this game, despite the hand looking similar, is going to have to look different. And we see the Grinding Station added to the board anyway. I imagine that's a pretty juicy target for that Quasali Pride Mage post-combat next turn. So we'll see exactly when Garrett wants to pull the trigger on that. But Grinding Station, a pretty key combo piece. Scavenging Ooze added to the mix. These are 2 of the really big sideboard cards we just talked about. And being able to shut down important artifacts and enchantments and the graveyard adds a lot of options for Garrett here. And Spider already kind of squirming a little bit, trying to figure out exactly what things need to look like for him to get out of this one.
Engineered Explosives on 2 would be pretty good right now.
Yeah, Engineered Explosives. That feels like kind of what's happening every time. Anytime somebody has multiple pieces of hate, it's like, dang, Spider, he's going to have to work through all this. It's like, or he just draws Engineered Explosives and all his problems are solved. It reminds me of the KCI days. Remember KCI? The whole thing about that deck was that the Engineered Explosives got to be a 2-mana artifact. Like, you played it for 0 mana, got 2 mana out of it when comboing, and it just solved all of the deck's problems. It's like, what do you got? Like, just rest in peace, got that covered. Like
Well,
everything but the card Stony Silence. It just had it covered. So like this feels like it does a lot of the same things. It's like, darn, hate pieces. What are we gonna do? It's like, well, you could just draw engineered explosives. It's like, oh, we could draw engineered explosives.
and that's why you run Engineered Explosives main and Amulet Titan.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why you're running it. Yep.
That's the only one that's doing it. Looking at you, Mr. Doom.
I'm running
Look
it
at
main
you.
board. I'm running 4 copies called Karn the Great Creator.
Uh-huh. Oh, here we go. 6 mana engineered explosives on 2 is much worse than 2 mana explosives on 2.
It's true.
That's all I got to say on the matter. Walking Ballista added to the board only for 1. Had the option to play it for 2. Leaving up Scavenging Ooze activations and the Quasali Pride Mage activation makes a lot of sense to me. I like the patience a lot here from Garrett. Just keeping stuff in play, recognizing that even though he has hate cards, he needs to keep a clock on Spider Space. Very, very much like the patience, not firing these off aggressively. Things like Luris also recur. Mox Amber, I don't know. Spider seems excited about that second Mox Amber. I don't know what kind of options that opens up, but Scavenging Ooze is off the tables, and we're at 6. So if we're going for it, it's right now. It's time. So let's see what Spider can come up with.
Get the planes, grab Luris, play the Amber, right? Float a mana with the other Amber. Have 3 mana. If Grinding Station gets blown up, you can actually recast it, and then rebuy a Mox Amber using Luris, and then cast Underworld Breach, if I just did that math correctly.
Those were all words, yes. I will trust that you have done the math. I will trust Spider has done the math. Like I said, this is not a Drake Sasser deck. There's too much to figure out. Like I like Storm a lot more. I did very well with Storm in a few SCG opens. Storm got a lot easier. Like Gifts Ungiven made the deck a lot easier. Just go grab your cards, do the stuff, tutor the stuff. You don't have to worry about, oh gosh, what are my odds? I'm 10% to draw this one card or whatever. Like, what are my odds of going off here at every single step? You don't have to do all that. You just cast your Gifts Ungiven, 3 mana floating, Baron play, they're dead. You did it. Congrats. And that's the kind of math I like. I like good deterministic kills, whereas this is most likely deterministic at some point in time, but it's all kinds of math I'm not used to doing.
I think it's deterministic. It's almost deterministic right now.
Yeah. This looks close to deterministic. I mean, anytime a breach is entering play with a legend in play and a Mox Amber, I feel like we're just done here. But there is a Quasali Pride Mage in play that disrupts things a little bit. So I don't really know what that looks like here.
This one of Repeal has been absolutely fantastic for Spider Space so far this match.
It has. It looks like we put Bobble in play just to go ahead and crack it. That Pithing Needle does represent some interesting options on forcing the action on Quasali Pride Mage. That way it does not pick off, because the threat here is not actually picking off Grinding Station, it's picking off the Underworld Breach, right? And so if we can shut off the options here with this Pithing Needle, which looks like what Spider Space is reaching for, then we can get the Underworld Breach into play cleanly. We have enough cards in the graveyard to kind of make a little bit more mana with these Mox Ambers, just getting them out of play. And I think we're going to see him go ahead and sack the Grinding Station to itself. Just mill 3 more cards. Like I said, make more mana with these Mox Ambers. Be able to recast the Grinding Station and just roll it up from there. This might be the end of Garrett Martin's road if we don't have some more instant speed interaction. I don't really know what Garrett could have here, but it looks like most of the plays. Ooh, this would be a sick time for a Dromoka's Command, right here, right here. Would be a nice time for a Dromoka's Command. And this really shows, I mean, whether or not we see a Dromoka's Command, this really shows the resiliency of these kinds of combo decks. And part of what makes them so scary is, like, let's talk about Garrett's hand this game, right? Like, turn 1 mana creature. Turn 2, like, relevant hate piece, like relevant piece of interaction, relevant sideboard card. Turn 3, like, relevant sideboard card. Turn 4, add to the clock, put you basically dead on board, and still have all the mana up for these relevant sideboard cards to do their thing and interact. Inspired Page just like, herp derp, Repeal 1, Pithing Needle the other, and it's done. I don't care. And it just really, really shows the power of these decks, the resiliency of these decks, if you aren't hard targeting them. If you're trying to beat them with these little one-off effects or these things that can be interacted with very easily, then these decks just trample over all that. They just completely go over the top of it. And, I mean, we're watching that in action right now. Spider Space pumping his head along, having a good time, chugging along, doing the clickies. And it's just like that. It's all over.
Garrett
Luris
had Quasali Pride Mage and He also had Scavenging Ooze, and it just wasn't enough. It
Yeah,
just
and
wasn't
that's
enough.
crazy, right? Like it's so like this is so frustrating. This is where players get really, really frustrated. Is they're like, like this combo deck. I drew my sideboard cards. I had a good hand that had sideboard cards for this matchup. Drew them, played them, multiple of them, and it was not good enough. And that's the kind of stuff. That's I think where people get frustrated. And this deck obviously isn't running over the format anytime soon. But like this kind of shows how close these decks often are to just being busted, to just being the best thing to do in a format. Because if they can consistently beat the hate, kind of like we're seeing in this game, if they can do that consistently, that deck's just too strong. Like you're just going over the top of everything. And you should just be doing this. And that's, I mean, I compared this deck to KCI earlier. That was very much what KCI did and why that card was not okay. This deck, very reminiscent. You know, maybe Spider Space is broken. Maybe this is it. Maybe we're going to see Spider Space crush the whole rest of the league with this. That's very possible. Like, you know, this deck has a lot of those hallmarks that we saw out of that KCI deck. So I don't know. This
I
is like,
will
if this deck isn't it, it's close. It feels like, and we're maybe
I
only a
will
printing
point
away.
out, if Spider Space is going to take out the whole tournament, well, his next opponent happens to be playing this card. This, you may have heard of it, Karn the Great
All right, tell me
Creator.
about it. Tell me about it.
Karn the Great Creator is effectively a
That card doesn't
Stony
sound very good.
Silence on a Planeswalker. I happen to
Stony
be
Silence.
running it, and I'm playing the winner of these two next week. So I'm really enjoying watching this matchup because now I kind of understand how Spider Space's deck works like really well. And it's basically my game plan will be play Karn.
Wow, that is so different from your game plan if you hadn't watched these matches.
Exactly.
I bet watching this match has really opened your eyes to how impactful Karn is against a deck full of artifacts with activated
I wouldn't
abilities.
have known.
Really good stuff. Really good stuff. Really impressive, actually.
I also think maybe Bajuka Bog is probably also a good card against this
To put in an
style.
amulet deck? Wow.
Yeah.
Graveyard hate.
Mhm.
Good against the deck that
Bajuka
wins using a graveyard card. This is look, this is just premium content. This is what you come to the Modern Streamers League for right here, ladies and gentlemen. It just doesn't get any better than this.
We have to talk about something while
Well, Spider Space does
combo
the infamous clicking. You know, St. Doom, this is why I want Spider Space to win the whole thing. Here we go. Let me give my pitch. My pitch, first of all, you lose, which is just great content.
Okay, all right.
Like, anytime we're beating up St. Doom, that's just good stuff. Second off, we get to watch Spider click a bunch. And boy, do I like watching people click a bunch. And then, on top of all that, it might mean that he just broke Modern wide open. And if he broke Modern wide open, then I just know what to play in every Modern tournament. So it's just all win-win-win for me. There's just nothing but upside.
That's certainly a perspective.
But you are right. Perhaps Spider is going to have a little bit of a problem getting through 4 main deck Stony Silence effects. A little bit more hate than I think he was anticipating for artifacts coming into this league, and I certainly don't blame him. But with back against the wall, I mean, he's shown his ability to beat hate before. Maybe you're just going to get your card repealed, and you're going to feel super silly, and the game's going to end.
And that does cost 5 mana. So he would need a Kinnan in play to do that. But there we go.
There we go. Spider Space just like, yeah, we did it.
Yeah.
I killed it. I mean, impressive stuff. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Like, we just watched game after game, 2 matches tonight. Spider Space in the elimination bracket, back against the wall, just like playing combo deck, face up. Normally, people have this narrative that they're like, if they know I'm on a combo deck, that's a problem. They can mulligan the hands that interact with me. They mulligan the hands that beat me. Like, I feel scared if I'm with a combo deck. I don't want people to know I'm on that combo deck because, like, they may keep a hand that's like all creature removal spells or something, which are just not good against most combo decks or whatever. And I'm just like, all right, if they know that that's the matchup, they're more likely to mulligan for a hand they know is good in the matchup. Like, combo decks are some of the spots where you can mulligan to hands that either race better or interact better. And we see Spider Space running a combo deck into like face-up deck lists. Both players know what's going on, and that usually people have this narrative that doesn't favor combo decks. But we see Spider Space just taking out opponent after opponent through hate, and it's really impressive stuff to watch. This deck's really cool, and I'm dreading having to learn it and figure it out because that's just, I mean, I didn't do it with KCI. I refused to. Like I said, remember, small brain. Drake has small brain. So I just tried, I just was like, I'm not going to learn KCI. I'm going to do other stuff. And this deck kind of gives me those same vibes where it's like, here's a deck that like has a very resilient thing that does powerful stuff out of the graveyard using artifacts when artifact hate is kind of down low and is able to beat a lot of the hate that's coming for it. And so that's just a very impressive deck to me.
Really cool thing about this deck is it cantrips a lot, and its cantrips are a lot easier than KCI's cantrips were. KCI's cantrips are always a little bit awkward. They're more mana intensive, like they cost 2 mana to cantrip, where Astrolabe costs 1. So it cantrips a lot utilizing a lot fewer lands, and it has a much better backup plan. This deck can it's like, oh, you shut down my artifact plan, I'll go Luris Seal of Fire, because there's that Seal of Fire sideboard.
Yeah.
Luris Seal
You,
of
you
Fire.
got to see exactly how good Luris Seal of Fire is earlier in this league.
We did.
I mean, it's some powerful stuff. I mean, like you just machine gun down these creature decks. We got to see. I mean, Spirespace couldn't bring in that Seal of Fire faster. Seal of Fire, Pirate Spellbomb, both of them accomplished the same means to an end. Just machine gun down little creatures.
Yep. So that's my failing. That's why I lost to the creature deck with Jund. It wasn't that Garrett top deck to Galactic Company. It said I'm not running for Seal of Fire. Got it.
Yep. You're correct. See, I told you. I learned you. Play Seal of Fires. They're great. Seal of Fire
is fantastic. Combo. Hey, I played that back with Renegade Rallier and Seal of Fire.
Yeah, Renegade Rallier. Why do people keep playing that deck or that card on this league? Why? Okay.
We saw the Kitchen Finks tonight, and I thought you were going to go off a little bit there off of Kitchen Finks.
Kitchen Finks, I respect. Kitchen Finks is at least part of an infinite combo. At least it's part of an infinite combo. Renegade Rallier doesn't even have that going for it.
Yes, it does. Renegade Rallier, Safi Eriksdottir, and Carrion Feeder is a turn 3 win. Turn 1 Carrion Feeder, turn 2 Safi Eriksdottir, turn 3 Renegade Rallier is an infinitely sized. I've done it online. It was fantastic. Check my YouTube.
Renegade Rallier, not a modern playable card. That's what I got for you. That's my commentary. It's as high level as it gets.
It's not.
It's just
please
do not put Renegade Rallier in your deck.
Don't do that. Don't.
Luris. Read Luris, then read Renegade Rallier, and then make some important life decisions from
and then
that
read
information. Luris again. Yeah. All right. Well, this was a sweet match. I mean, what do we got? We have 6 total players left. We had 6. Yeah. So we had 16 to start. We had lost 6 players at the start of tonight. We have 4 more players eliminated with the elimination rounds that went on tonight. You somehow survived with your Karns and your Amulet deck. Amulet still managed to carry despite the nerfs you did to the deck. And we will see next week if you can maintain your winning streak, come through, win it all. And we have, we're down to 6. We're down to 6.
I will be playing. What am I playing next? I'll have to check the bracket. But actually, we're leading off next week with your match against Capolo.
Ooh, me, Capolo. The rematch from GP Atlanta played in Legacy.
Undefeated Titans crashing together to see who wants the easy path to the championship in the Modern Streamers.
And I want the easy path, but like I said, never count me out. I will find a way to lose games. I promise you that.
Chat asked how many Renegade Ralliers I own. I think I own 4 of the promo foils, 4 non-promo foils, so 8.
More than anybody should is the answer, no matter what answer.
Anyone definitely should.
Okay, I don't know why I hate that card so much. It just is so low impact. I can't. You know what? I'm not. You know what? You're right. Renegade Rallier. We got to see Francisco do some nasty stuff with Renegade Rallier earlier in the league. I admitted the card was not as bad as I think it is, and we moved on. We're on to better things. We're breaching people now. We're doing stuff I'm willing to admit is nice. Breach. Put that card in your deck. Do not no. Rallier does get back breach though, but so does Luris. So put Luris in your breach.
Yes.
Good deck building. Spider's a genius.
Yeah. Why play Renegade Rallier when you can play Luris?
Yeah, he gets it. Why? He's on board now.
I'm on board. Why not both?
¿Por qué no los dos?
So we'll see you guys next week. We play every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but last week is our final week on the road to the championship. As Drake's mentioned a couple times, we're losing players fast now.
We're down the final 6. I mean, started at 16. We're just swaths of them on these elimination nights. It's high stakes. If you lose, you're out. Done. Gone. No more. Yeah, gone. See ya. And it's sweet magic. I really like watching this kind of magic where there's a lot on the line, backs against the wall, 1 deck left. No control over the matchup at all. Just run the decks into each other, hope for the best. And we got to watch some sweet decks, some sweet games tonight. I got exactly what I was looking for. I hope you enjoyed it. I know you enjoyed winning. I know you enjoyed that. But I had a good time tonight.
I did too. Thank you very much for hanging out with me. Thank you very much for being an excellent commentator as always.
I try. I do. I really do.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thanks to Wizards of the Coast and Card Hoarder for sponsoring us. We are sponsored by them. And most importantly, thank you again to all the players in the Modern Streamers League. I know they're dropping like flies right now, but this wouldn't be a league without the 16 players involved putting their time and their effort, not just brewing some pretty sweet decks, but also playing these matches and having to deal with me in the Discord chat.
That is easily the most difficult part.
The hardest part. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night. We'll see you Tuesday, where Drake and Capolo play at 8 Eastern Time.